Chapter 39:44. Rumble. The crowd looked up at the sky. The extreme collision of darkness and light caused a deafening roar that shook the souls of everyone present. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the spear of darkness rushed into the golden light and seemed to be devoured. The light between the heavens and the earth became brighter, and the aura of darkness became much weaker. "Her Highness has won." The crowd's eyes trembled as they exclaimed. Bang! However, before they could finish their words, an explosion came from the void, as if a mountain was collapsing. Rumble! Bang, bang, bang! Then, the sound of something collapsing could be heard. The golden light in the sky shook violently as if it was forcefully torn apart by some kind of power. It instantly collapsed and dissipated in the void. The sudden change caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Boom! Then, a roar was heard. Amidst the collapsing golden light, the spear of darkness whizzed out. Like a dragon that broke through its shackles, it headed straight for the Heaven's Saintess. The Heaven's Saintess instantly felt the killing intent. Her pretty face changed in shock. In a moment of desperation, she released a golden ray of light that condensed into a light shield in front of her. Bang! However, the light shield couldn't stop the spear of darkness at all and directly collapsed. Then, the Heaven's Saintess was sent flying, leaving a bloody trail in the void. Like a kite with a broken string, she fell straight down. "Her Highness!" The horrifying scene caused the crowd to exclaim. However, they only stared blankly and didn't move at all. Just as the Heaven's Saintess was about to hit the ground, a soft force appeared and supported her up in midair. The Heaven's Saintess stabilized herself. Her beautiful eyes flickered. She turned around and saw a silver-haired cultivator. "You!" The Heaven's Saintess' expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to speak, blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. "Don't speak. Rest first." Nye Tian stepped forward and smiled faintly. A stream of energy gushed out from his palm and entered the Heaven's Saintess' body. The latter's pale complexion immediately improved a little. The Saintess of Heaven frowned slightly and looked at Nye Tian with a strange expression, but she still nodded solemnly. She was severely injured. That spear of darkness had almost taken her life. Xiao Wanjie's strength was much stronger than she had expected. "I'm not seeing things right? It's actually a small shrimp." At this time, Xiao Wanjie's eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared cold at Nye Tian. He couldn't help but sneer. He could not believe his eyes. The warrior in front of him was only at the 9th level of the heavenly mandate realm. He didn't even have the interest to look at such strength. He really couldn't understand where this person got the courage to stand out at this time. "Your Highness Saintess, please step back. Leave this guy to me." Nye Tian didn't pay any attention to Xiao Wanjie. Instead, he smiled at the Saintess of Heaven and said calmly, The Heaven Saintess looked at Nye Tian and couldn't help but be stunned. Her eyes were full of distrust. She couldn't be blamed. No normal person would believe that a heavenly mandate Saint Master could resist Xiao Wanjie. She even suspected that this silver-haired warrior in front of her was a fool. Everyone's expressions changed when they heard Nye Tian's words. They began to discuss quietly. "Who is this kid? He's only at the heavenly mandate realm, and he dares to come out and act like a hero. Does he not want to live? I think this kid must be crazy because he admires the Saintess so much that he doesn't even care about his life. Sigh, he wants to be a hero and save a damsel in distress when he doesn't have the strength. He really doesn't know what's good for him." The crowd was discussing. They were all mocking Nye Tian. They didn't realize that Nye Tian was saving the Heaven Saintess. If the Heaven Saintess hadn't made a move, many people present would have become ghosts under Xiao Wanjie's palm. They didn't dare to make a move, but they still mocked Nye Tian. They even spoke righteously. They were really shameless. "Kid, you're interesting." At this time, Xiao Wanjie laughed. He had paid attention to Nye Tian before, so he had some impression of the latter. He didn't expect this little shrimp to be so courageous. Come. Nye Tion's eyes darkened. He took a step forward. His figure was like lightning as he stood high in the sky. Sword will surged crazily all over his body. He really wanted to fight Xiao Wanjie. Humph. Xiao Wanjie laughed and said with a proud expression, "Interesting ant. You are still an ant. In my eyes, you are no different from those trash." Is that so? Nye Tion's lips curled into a cold smile. His eyes were filled with fearlessness. Xiao Wanjie's expression changed slightly. "Kid, since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish." Boom! As his voice faded, he flipped his palm and slapped out. Instantly, ghostly energy surged like the sea, turning into a violent palm shadow that pressed towards Nye Tion. Nye Tion's eyes darkened. Without any hesitation, he used his eye power to attack his martial body. He activated his demonic body, and waves of demonic energy appeared. It was as dark as the abyss. In the blink of an eye, demonic inscriptions appeared on Nye Tion's face. The crimson-red inscriptions made him look incomparably evil, like a demon that walked out from hell. Boom! Then, his aura crazily rose as he pushed his sword will to the extreme. It was like a storm that was filled with killing intent. Heavenly sword against the sun. In the next second, Nye Tion growled and the sky sword appeared in his hand. The sword's light shone brightly and the sword's shadow howled. It was like a roaring beast that rushed towards the oppressive palm. Boom! The palm and the sword collided. The heaven and earth trembled. Violent energy surged out, turning into waves that crazily wreaked havoc in the air. At this moment, Xiao Wanjie suddenly felt a sharp sword energy coming towards him. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Pfff. The sword energy instantly shot towards him. Xiao Wanjie felt a ray of light flash before his eyes. Then, he felt a burning pain on his face. A glaring, blood-red sword scar was clearly imprinted on his face. Sword mark. Nye Tion left a sword mark on his face. This unexpected scene made everyone's eyes tremble. Then, they all froze. Pairs of eyes stared at Xiao Wanjie. The shock in their hearts was written on their faces. Not even in their dreams did they think that Nye Tion would be able to block Xiao Wanjie's palm. Moreover, he even left a sword mark on Xiao Wanjie's face. The atmosphere was deathly silent and oppressive. It was so low that it was suffocating. Chapter 39:45. Xiao Wanjie floated in midair, his eyes filled with blood-red bloodlust. They were fixed on Nye Tion like extremely cold, sharp blades. That terrifying killing intent seemed to be able to seep into one's bones, making one feel bone-piercing coldness. Xiao Wanjie was the demon son of the demon clan, the future ruler of the entire demon realm. Ever since he was young, he had always been a lofty existence, looking down on all cultivators. But today, in front of so many people, a heavenly mandate Saint Master left a sword mark on his face. It was a humiliation that pierced his soul. How could he endure such humiliation? This was like a steel needle piercing his heart, making him feel like he was about to go crazy. Anger. Extreme anger. Insane anger. The anger that made the blood chi around him go berserk. It filled his martial body, making him seem like an abyss of anger. In the next moment, he would explode with the most terrifying murderous intent. His aura is so terrifying. Everyone looked at Xiao Wanjie and sensed the terrifying aura from him. Their eyes couldn't help but tremble. The fear in their hearts was perfectly written on their faces. At this moment, everyone could feel the chilling murderous intent rushing towards them. That murderous and frenzied aura seemed to want to devour their hearts. Everyone knew that Xiao Wanjie was in a state of extreme anger. Next, Nye Tion would die miserably. The Saintess of Heaven stared at Xiao Wanjie. Her beautiful eyes trembled and her heart sank. She couldn't help but worry. She knew that Xiao Wanjie was about to erupt. It would be difficult for Nye Tion to escape. "Are you angry?" Nie Tian stared at Xiao Wanjie. His eyes were as deep as water, without the slightest ripple. He spoke without a hint of fear. Instead, there was an undisguised provocation in his tone. You deserve to die. Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled slightly. He uttered each word coldly. The murderous intent in his tone was like that of a ferocious beast that wanted to devour someone. Boom! In the next moment, his body jerked. Instantly, the ghost chi within his body erupted like a volcano, wreaking havoc in the air as if it wanted to devour everything in the world. After that, the ghostly chi grew denser and denser, forming a gigantic ghostly silhouette around Xiao Wanjie's body. It was like a mountain, exuding an oppressive aura that could kill the heavens and earth. Xiao Wanjie had underestimated Nie Tian too much with that palm strike just now. At this moment, he treated the latter as a true opponent and no longer held anything back. He attacked with all his strength, wanting to kill Nie Tian in one blow. This guy's aura is so terrifying. Nie Tian felt an oppressive force that blotted out the heavens and covered the earth, and he actually faintly felt a sense of suffocation, causing him to be extremely shocked in his heart. Xiao Wanjie's strength was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Die, ant! At this moment, Xiao Wanjie let out a low roar, and his myriad ghost body moved. A violent aura burst forth, and a terrifying aura that could collapse mountains appeared. In the next moment, a black palm shadow appeared, crushing the rolling dark clouds as it shot towards Nie Tian. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but shiver. The shock in their hearts was at its peak. This was the first time Xiao Wanjie had used his 10,000 ghost physique in front of everyone. The power that exploded from his palm was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Nie Tian right away. At this moment, there was only one thought in everyone's mind. Nie Tian is dead for sure. Nie Tian. Jun Jianxing, EMO, and the others saw this and their faces changed color. They couldn't help but scream out in fear. Their expressions froze in an instant. They could feel Xiao Wanjie's terrifying qi that could destroy everything. His monstrous killer's intent was enough to destroy everything. Nie Tian was very capable and extremely talented. However, in the face of such terrifying power, could he really block it? Oh no. At the same time, Tang 13's eyes shook and her nerves tightened. Her heart was in her throat. Next to her, Tang Yuyu's pretty face froze. There was an indescribable shock on her face. Demonic god, heaven-defying. High up in the sky, Nie Tian faced the killing power that was coming at him. His eyes were deep like water. What he revealed on his face was not fear, but rather, his desire to fight. Even against a terrifying opponent like Xiao Wanjie, he was fearless. In the next second, the demonic god's energy inside Nie Tian's body exploded. The demonic god's energy was like an erupting volcano that shook the entire space. Under the pressure of this power, the heavens and earth felt like they were about to collapse. The demonic god's energy coalesced into a terrifying body of darkness. It was like a demon that walked out of the darkest hell. Then, the demonic god's energy rose up into the sky and collided with the power of the 10,000 ghost physique. Heaven and earth collapsed as if it was about to completely collapse. The next moment, the extreme powers collided with each other. The rolling power surged and spread wildly in all directions. There was a deafening roar between heaven and earth. Everyone was completely shocked by the scene in front of them. Countless eyes instantly froze as if they couldn't believe their eyes. Nie Tian had actually blocked Xiao Wanjie's palm. Such a scene was far more shocking than Nie Tian being killed. Everyone's eyes trembled as if they had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. For them, everything in front of them was indeed very frightening. A divine sage of the heavenly mandate realm had actually blocked the extreme palm of the devil son of the devil clan. It was unbelievable. Only then did they realize that the silver-haired warrior in front of them was far more terrifying than they had imagined. At this moment, the demonic god's body above the sky shook. Finally, it could no longer resist the terrifying pressure of the 10,000 ghost physique. It collapsed and turned into endless demonic chi that dissipated, stirring up thousands of wild waves in the void. Above the sky, waves of terrible air blasted, and a harsh sound filled everyone's ears. After that, a muffled bang resounded, and then a blood-red figure was blasted flying. It drew a bloody and dazzling arc in the sky. It was Nyetian. Nyetian's figure fell straight down like a kite with a broken string. But at this moment, his body suddenly shook, and the wings on his back spread out. He forcibly resisted the force of the fall and stabilized himself in the air. He stopped. Everyone's eyes trembled and they all exclaimed. They couldn't believe their eyes. Nyetian had actually stabilized his body. Nyetian stood still in the air. His body was dripping with blood. His flesh and blood were tumbling, and even pieces of white bones could be seen. He had activated the demonic god's body and blocked Xiao Wanjie's palm with the heaven-defying power of the demonic god. But he was still seriously injured. His body trembled slightly as if he was about to fall. Chapter 39:46. Xiao Wanjie's eyes were bloodshot and filled with killing intent, like that of an enraged beast. Cold murderous intent filled the space for hundreds of thousands of meters, suffocating everyone. He activated the 10,000 ghost body to kill Nyetian with one palm. But at this moment, he only seriously injured Nyetian. This was an unacceptable result. He had already treated Nyetian as a true opponent, but he had still underestimated the latter's strength. Nyetian was far more terrifying than he had imagined. At this moment, he looked at Nyetian with anger and murderous intent in his eyes. There was also a hint of unconcealable fear. That's right, he felt a threat from Nyetian, a very direct threat. He was the devil son of the demon race, a super genius ranked in the top 3 on the Hidden Sky ranking of all realms. But he, with the strength of the 9th level of heavenly righteousness, was actually unable to kill a 9th level heavenly mandate realm warrior. This was simply a disgrace. Nyetian was only at the 9th level of the heavenly mandate realm, but he was able to block his palm. This was too terrifying. At this moment, he felt that if Nyetian's strength was the same as his, he would most likely be completely defeated in front of the latter. This person's martial arts talent is above mine. He must not be allowed to live. Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled, and his heart roared like a wild beast. He had already made up his mind to absolutely not let Nyetian live. The devil son of the demon race is only SOSO. At this time, Nyetian looked at Xiao Wanjie and felt the latter's murderous intent, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he smiled faintly and spoke provocatively. This guy is really a madman. Everyone looked at Nyetian. Their expressions were no longer the original contempt, but shock and even fear. They had originally thought that Nyetian was just a clown. Who would have thought that this clown was actually so terrifying? I remember now. This kid is from the Haoyun auction house. At this time, someone recognized Nyetian and could not help but exclaim, "Auction house? Could it be that he's that fellow who withstood the power of 9 blood tribulations?" Everyone came to their senses, and their eyes trembled as they exclaimed in unison. Nyetian did not have much fame, but the matter of him withstanding 9 streaks of blood tribulation power in the auction house had long spread throughout the entire vast cloud sacred city. Although the martial artists present had never seen him before, they had all heard of this matter. Some people even put Nyetian on the same level as those super geniuses because of this incident. But they never expected that the guy who withstood the power of 9 blood calamities was a mere saint master of the heavenly mandate realm. What was even more unexpected was that this martial artist had actually come to the testing grounds of the 5 academies. Even if he could withstand the power of the 9 blood tribulations, shouldn't he be severely injured? He should be recuperating right now. Why would he appear here? No matter what, since someone recognized Nie Tian, everyone was convinced of his identity. Perhaps only the legendary person who withstood the power of the blood tribulations could fight against Xiao Wanjie to such an extent. At this moment, Jun Jianxing, EMO, and the others were also stunned. They could not believe that Nie Tian had survived. Tang Yuyu's beautiful eyes froze, and she stood rooted to the ground. Her lips trembled, but she could not say a word. She had originally thought that Nie Tian's combat ability was below hers. Only now did she realize that Nie Tian was far stronger than her. If the person who had fought against Xiao Wanjie just now was her, she would have died long ago. The devil's son of the devil clan is just SOSO. At this moment, Nie Tian looked at Xiao Wanjie and said with a faint smile. He was actually provoking him. "You're courting death," Xiao Wanjie said coldly, and his words seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. His scarlet eyes were like those of a vicious wolf, cruel and bloodthirsty. Boom! In the next instant, his body trembled as ghostly qi gushed forth, condensing into a storm of ghostly qi in the air. It was as though a myriad of devils were dancing wildly in the air. The surging killing intent bore down on Nie Tian. Nie Tianling stood in the air, feeling the terrifying killing intent approaching him. The astral energy in his body erupted forth, and his astral souls erupted in an instant. Earlier, his fiend god energy had already been exhausted. Now, he could only rely on his astral souls. At this moment, there were no more forbidden astral souls in his body. However, there were still forbidden astral souls imprinted on his astral soul original tome. He used astral inscriptions to inscribe these astral souls. Mortal slaughter astral soul, activate. In an instant, Nie Tian spoke in a heavy voice. His eyes gleamed with killing intent as astral inscriptions appeared. His mortal slaughter astral soul appeared, like a resplendent rainbow-colored rainbow, directly shooting out. Back then, he had fused the mortal slaughter astral soul into the body of the netherworld dragon, Xian Chia, and also imprinted the mortal slaughter astral soul onto his astral soul original tome. At this moment, he wanted to use his mortal slaughter astral soul to resist Xiao Wanjie. His mortal slaughter astral soul was capable of slaughtering all living beings. Its killing intent was extremely heavy. Nie Tian wanted to use his mortal slaughter astral soul to counterattack, forcefully resisting Xiao Wanjie. But at the instant when the mortal slaughter astral soul shot out, Nie Tian's eyes flickered. At this instant, he could sense that just the mortal slaughter astral soul alone was insufficient to resist Xiao Wanjie. Mantis trying to stop a chariot. Xiao Wanjie laughed coldly. Incomparably arrogant, he let out a fierce roar. In the next moment, countless tornadoes of ghost qi gathered together and morphed into a terrifyingly enormous tornado of ghost qi that swept towards Nie Tian. Xiao Wanjie's eyes flickered with a cold killing intent. It was as though he could already see the scene of Nie Tian being killed by him. He absolutely didn't believe that the heavily injured Nie Tian would be able to block his ultimate attack. Rumble! In the next instant, the storm of ghostly qi and the human slaughter astral soul collided together, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. A violent shockwave radiated outwards in all directions, akin to a raging tsunami, gushing forth with a momentum capable of devouring everything. But in just an instant, Nie Tian saw the mortal slaughter astral soul begin to crumble, completely unable to resist the power of the ghostly qi storm. Earth annihilation, annihilate Song Huang. At this moment of crisis, a low voice rang out, after which a majestic force appeared, descending with a loud rumble. It actually fused with the mortal slaughter astral soul, instantly erupting with a terrifying power. Rumble! Bang bang bang! In an instant, the two extreme forces collided, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Waves of violent energy ravaged the air, causing the heavens and earth to fall into a state of chaos. When the crowd saw this scene, their expressions abruptly changed, completely dumbfounded. No one would have thought that such a strange scene would occur. At this moment, Xiao Wanjie abruptly felt a terrifying surge of energy appearing. He couldn't help but exclaim in shock as his silhouette was forced to retreat a few thousand meters away. How can this be? Xiao Wanjie stabilized his body, his eyes trembling with fear. He didn't expect that the fusion of the two energies would be so terrifying. "Nie Tian, are you alright?" At the same time, a silhouette descended, standing shoulder to shoulder with Nie Tian. This person was none other than Jun Jianxing. Earlier, it was precisely him who fused his earthly annihilation astral soul with Nie Tian's mortal slaughter astral soul, blocking Xiao Wanjie's ultimate attack. "I'm fine." Nie Tian stabilized his body. Although his entire body was drenched in blood, a strange light flickered in his eyes. He was very surprised. The fusion of the mortal slaughter astral soul and earthly annihilation astral soul could actually unleash such a terrifying power. It was as though after the fusion of two forbidden astral souls, the power that could be unleashed was beyond imagination. Chapter 39-47. Nie Tian's gaze swept over Tang 13 and Jun Jianxing. The corner of his mouth twitched into a strange smile. Earlier, when Jun Jianxing used his earth-destroying astral soul, he combined it with his human slaughter astral soul to unleash a powerful force that forced Xiao Wanjie to retreat. It seemed that after the fusion of astral souls, one's strength would increase tremendously. Maybe if he, Tang 13, Jun Jianxing and Jun Jianxing worked together, they would have a chance to defeat Xiao Wanjie. What's going on? At this moment, the crowd was dumbfounded by the scene before them. Finally, they reacted and stared at Nie Tian and the other two with astonishment in their eyes. They didn't expect that Nie Tian would survive once again. However, when they saw Tang 13 and Jun Jianxing's strength, their expressions changed. They were shocked and looked down on them. Tang 13 and Jun Jianxing were both at the first level of heavenly righteousness. Although they weren't weak, in front of Xiao Wanjie, they were no different from ants. "Who are you?" Up in the air, Xiao Wanjie calmed down. His eyes flashed with venomous light as he stared at Tang 13 and Jun Jianxing. If it weren't for these two, he would have already killed Nie Tian. The famous devil son of the devil clan is actually a homicidal maniac. What an eye-opener. Tang 13 laughed coldly, her tone was filled with provocation. "Who are you to interfere in my affairs?" Xiao Wanjie's expression darkened as he roared in a low voice. Instantly, the ghostly aura around him churned as the body of 10,000 ghosts appeared once again. "Bring it on!" Tang 13's eyes narrowed as she spoke without fear. "You're courting death." Xiao Wanjie's killing intent surged. Instantly, ghostly aura filled the air. Waves of ghostly aura danced in the air like snakes. "Astral soul." Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he spoke in a low voice. Tang 13 and Jun Jianxing naturally understood Nie Tian's meaning. They nodded at the same time. Their eyes were not filled with fear, but with excitement. Fighting against an expert like Xiao Wanjie already made them very excited, not to mention fighting alongside their most trusted friend. Nie Tian, Tang 13, and Jun Jianxing. One of them was the Astral Saint Sovereign, the other was the Killer Wolf Star Sovereign, and the last was the Earth Destruction Star Sovereign. Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing's unintentional joint attack made them understand that after the Forbidden Star Lords merged, they could erupt with unimaginable power. Therefore, at this moment, when they were resisting the myriad tribulation, they had to use the power of the forbidden astral souls to forcefully suppress it. 3 ants go to hell. At this time, Xiao Wanjie let out a roar and his figure soared into the sky like a mad dragon. Heaven and earth trembled under the pressure of the 10,000 ghosts. Boom, boom, boom. A violent ghostly aura came from the sky, causing people to tremble in fear. It was as if it wanted to devour and annihilate everything in the world. Everyone's eyes trembled. Under the influence of the monstrous ghost chi, they felt an extremely strong pressure. Some of the weaker martial artists even felt their bones cracking bit by bit. Kill. In the next instant, Xiao Wanjie let out a roar like thunder. Instantly, the 10,000 ghosts in the sky moved, and the endless ghostly aura turned into a dark storm, sweeping down from the sky, towards Nie Tian and the others. Nie Tian and the other two stood coldly in the sky, feeling the pressure rushing towards them. Their hearts were filled with shock. And in the distance, Emo, Tang Yuyu, and the others were extremely tense. They didn't even dare to blink. Clearly, they were extremely nervous. Rumble. It was at this moment that a violent storm of ghost chi suddenly descended. Like a raging tidal wave, it completely engulfed Nie Tian and the other two. This. Everyone's eyes trembled as they exclaimed in shock. Their faces instantly turned sluggish. They originally thought that with the performance of Nie Tian and the others, they would definitely fight to the end. They didn't expect that they would be killed just like that. No, they didn't die. But high up in the sky, Xiao Wanjie watched from afar. His eyes trembled slightly, as if he had sensed something, and his face changed. At the same time, in the midst of the monstrous ghostly aura storm, Nie Tian and the other two stood proudly under the sword formation in the sky, using the power of the sword formation to resist the violent impact of the ghostly aura. However, even with the sword formation in the sky resisting, the devouring power of the ghostly aura still made the three of them look unsightly. Nie Tian. Jun Jianxing's face was flushed red, and it was obvious that he couldn't hold on any longer. Attack! Nie Tian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He felt that the aura in the ghostly aura storm had changed slightly. He knew that the opportunity to attack had come, and he directly roared. All right. Jun Jianxing couldn't wait any longer. He roared like a wild beast, and his body trembled. Astral soul runes gushed out, and the earth-destroying astral soul berserk dragon defied the heavens, rushing towards the ghostly aura storm. Killing destruction wolf, open! At the same time, Tang 13's voice rang out. Instantly, the astral soul runes gushed out like a broken dam. The killing destruction wolf brought along a monstrous beast, and its murderous aura was tyrannical and tyrannical. Boom! Boom! In the next instant, the earth-destroying astral soul runes and the killing destruction wolf astral lord simultaneously exploded with terrifying power, tearing apart the ghostly aura storm. What's going on? Everyone saw the ghostly aura storm in the sky suddenly tremble, and then two giant holes appeared in it. Rays of starlight filled the air, and everyone couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Such a strange change was something that no one had expected. Huh! Xiao Wanjie's expression darkened, and he exclaimed in shock. He had an ominous premonition in his heart. In particular, the power contained within the starlight made him feel fearful. He cultivated the 10,000 ghosts' imperishable art, and the 10,000 extinguishing ghost chi could devour almost any kind of energy. However, the power contained in the starlight was something that the 10,000 extinguishing ghost chi could not devour. Not only that, the power contained in the starlight was able to suppress the 10,000 extinguishing ghost chi to a certain extent. He couldn't imagine what that power was. How could it be so terrifying? Bang! Bang! At this moment, the ghostly aura storm suddenly exploded, and two beams of starlight shot out like wild beasts, about to shatter the ghostly aura storm. Oh no! Xiao Wanjie's expression darkened, and he screamed in his heart. Roar! Roar! Chapter 39-48. Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled. He suddenly saw clearly that the two huge figures were actually two starlight beasts. One was a combination of a turtle and a snake, and the other was an azure dragon raging against the sky. Both of them were heading straight for him. Damn it! Xiao Wanjie was a genius martial artist after all. At this critical moment, he roared. The ghost aura around his body surged and roared, instantly forming a dark shield in front of him. Boom! Boom! In the next instant, the two huge figures landed at the same time and collided with the dark shield. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion between heaven and earth. The dark shield actually couldn't block the impact of the two huge beasts and collapsed with a loud bang. Ah! Xiao Wanjie howled miserably. His figure trembled in the void, and then he directly flew out, leaving behind a bloody smell in the air. At this moment, the ghost aura storm completely collapsed, and three figures appeared in the sky. It was Nie Tian and the other two. The sudden reversal caused everyone's expression to change. After they sucked in a breath of cold air, they were immediately dumbfounded, as if they had been struck dumb. Who would have thought that the devil son of the devil race, Xiao Wanjie, would actually be defeated by a heavenly mandate saint sovereign and two first-tier heavenly justice saints? Such a scene was too shocking. It was even more shocking than watching a battle between peerless experts. Everyone even doubted whether the three people in front of them really had such low cultivation. Xiao Wanjie, you have lost. At this time, Nie Tian took a step forward and looked at the bloody figure in the sky from afar. He spoke coldly. Xiao Wanjie stood there coldly. His body was covered in blood, and it was obvious that his injuries were not light. However, his eyes were still fierce and sinister. The ghost aura around his body surged as if he wanted to devour someone. He didn't dare to believe that he really lost to three ants. What kind of power did you use? Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled as he spoke coldly. He wasn't stupid. Of course, he could see that Nie Tian and the other two used the same power. That was why they could fuse it almost perfectly and burst out with unparalleled violent power. However, he didn't understand why three martial artists could burst out with the same kind of power. Moreover, this power was somewhat similar to the power of bloodline. The bloodline aura of Nie Tian and the other two were completely different. They weren't martial artists of the same race, so how could they have the same bloodline power? What made him even more panicked was that his extinguishing ghost chi was actually suppressed by this power. This was also one of the reasons why he lost. He had fought with countless geniuses and had lost before, but no one's bloodline power could suppress his extinguished ghost Wanjie's. Xiao Wanjie had thought. Xiao Wanxiu and the other two, and the power was. With Jie, the star power was Jie Tian and Jie. It Wan and Tian and the Jie and said. The power of the stars was the source of power, so it was not strange that it could suppress the annihilation ghost chi. Saint Xiao Wanjie, star power was. Wan of star power was, Wan said. Of said, Xiao Jie Shi star, Xiao Tian Jie Xiao, Jie looked. And, Tian, Wan Jie, You've never heard of it? Nie Tianling laughed coldly. The coldness in his eyes intensified as he said, but it doesn't matter because you are going to die soon. After he finished speaking, he took a step forward. Sword intent surged from his body, and his killing intent soared into the sky. What does he want to do? When everyone saw Nie Tian's sudden action, their expressions changed as they screamed. Looking at Nie Tian's stance, it was obvious that he wanted to kill Xiao Wanjie. Could it be that Nie Tian was a madman? He even dared to kill Xiao Wanjie? Other than his innate talent and strength, Xiao Wanjie's identity was even more terrifying. He was the son of the devil race. The devil race was a superpower that could go against the heavenly Tao sacred pavilion. And as the son of the devil race, Xiao Wanjie would be the future leader of the devil race. His status was indescribable. If Nie Tian killed Xiao Wanjie, wouldn't that be equivalent to offending the entire devil race? This also meant that he would be pursued endlessly by the devil race. You want to kill me? Xiao Wanjie stared at Nie Tian. He could feel the murderous intent radiating from him, but he wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he laughed. His laughter was extremely eerie. If you can kill me, I can naturally kill you. Nie Tion's gaze was murderous, and his entire being was incomparably cold. This time, he paid a heavy price to defeat Xiao Wanjie. Not only did he use the god-devil physique, but he also used the human killer technique, the Azure Dragon, and the Black Tortoise Star Souls. He even needed the help of Jun Jianxing and Tang 13. Although Nie Tian was also heavily injured, his killing intent towards Xiao Wanjie was incomparably strong. Xiao Wanjie was a cruel and bloodthirsty person. His death was not to be regretted. Moreover, Nie Tian was extremely fearful of Xiao Wanjie. If he wanted to take down the martial leader of the 5 academies, Xiao Wanjie would definitely be one of his strongest opponents. He only defeated Xiao Wanjie because of the help of Jun Jianxing and Tang 13. If they were in the arena, it would be a one-on-one battle. With his current strength, even if he broke through to the heavenly righteous realm, he wouldn't be Xiao Wanjie's opponent. Hence, now that he had a chance to kill Xiao Wanjie, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Is that so? Xiao Wanjie's eyes were as cold as ice. He coldly laughed. Brat, how can an ant like you kill this devil son? As the sound of his cold voice faded, Xiao Wanjie took a step forward. The ghostly qi around his body surged forth once more, cleansing the bloodstains on his body. The wounds on his body actually healed. When Nie Tian saw this scene, his countenance drastically changed. His eyes couldn't help but go into a daze. Earlier, when he sensed Xiao Wanjie's aura, it was clearly extremely weak. How did Xiao Wanjie completely recover in the blink of an eye? What kind of power was hidden within Xiao Wanjie's body? Humph, humph. Xiao Wanjie stared at the shocked expression on Nie Tian's face. He coldly laughed. Brat, this devil son wanted to let you go earlier. But who would have thought that you would want a foot after being given an inch and want to kill this devil son? Then this devil son will no longer have the possibility of sparing your life. Boom. When he finished speaking, his body shook. A strange power surged out of his body and turned into runes around his body. Then, there was the faint sound of a beast's roar in the air. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. They felt their souls tremble, and many people even vomited blood on the spot. Boom. At the same time, a terrifying power rumbled inside Nie Tian's body. It caused his entire body to shake, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. How could this be? In the next moment, Nie Tian stabilized his body. He screamed in his heart and stared at Xiao Wanjie as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. Chapter 39-49. Nie Tian could feel the restlessness of the 9-polar chaos beast. He was shocked. He had not expected this at all. Previously, he had sensed an unusually frightening hidden power in Xiao Wanjie's body. Furthermore, he had sensed that the power in Xiao Wanjie's body was making him restless. Now, Xiao Wanjie was releasing that hidden power. It was actually making Nie Tian's 9-polar chaos beast restless. What kind of power is that strange rune that this fellow is releasing? Nie Tian could feel the 9-polar chaos beast becoming more and more restless. He was secretly shocked, and his expression changed slightly. He had not expected the power in Xiao Wanjie's body to be able to affect the 9-polar chaos beast. Brat, didn't you want to kill me? Come on. At this time, Xiao Wanjie spoke coldly. His voice was like thunder. The moment he took a step forward, the rune around him started to circulate. A frightening power surged out like a flood, causing the void to tremble. What kind of power is this? It's so scary. The crowd could not help but exclaim when they felt the frightening aura. The aura that Xiao Wanjie was releasing was extremely frightening. It was as if it could seep into one's soul. It made one feel extremely threatened. Huh! Nie Tian looked at Xiao Wanjie. Instantly, he felt the 9-polar chaos beast become even more restless. That kind of impact seemed to be able to break the chaotic original coffin. What exactly is the power that he is releasing? Nietion's eyes were trembling. The shock in his heart was written all over his face. Brat, since you are not going to make a move, I am going to make a move. Xiao Wanjia's eyes were cold and ruthless. With a low growl, he moved. The aura around his body started to surge. It was as if it could swallow the heavens and the earth. It was actually several times stronger than before. Outside his body, a huge, dark beast appeared. From afar, it looked like a huge mountain. The frightening aura seemed to be able to suppress everything. At the same time, Nietion felt that the seal on the 9-polar chaos beast in his body was about to break. The 9th-grade chaos beast was about to be born. Oh no! The sudden and drastic change made Nietion's expression change in horror, and he cried out in his heart, "Oh no!" The huge dark beast that Xiao Wanjia had released seemed to have a certain connection with the 9 extreme chaos beast. It actually made the 9 extreme chaos beast even more manic. PFFF. Nietion could not withstand the impact of the 9th-level chaos beast and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Diant. At this time, Xiao Wanjia let out a roar and his figure moved. The gigantic beast of darkness was like a collapsing mountain as it charged towards Nietion. Nietion. Upon seeing this, Tang 13 and the others couldn't help but exclaim. But at this moment, there was nothing they could do but watch helplessly. The huge dark beast released by Xiao Wanjia was just too terrifying. Even a Saint King expert would not be able to withstand such a terrifying aura head-on. Countless pairs of eyes stared at the scene in the sky as if they could already see the scene of Nietion being killed. The power released by Xiao Wanjia was just too terrifying. Under a head-on attack, even a high-level Saint King would be killed. Boom! Nie Tianling stood in the void, his eyes trembling slightly. His body was also shaking slightly. Outside his body, streaks of blood-red light appeared, as if blood was surging. Huh! Xiao Wanjia, who was in midair, seemed to feel something. His expression changed slightly, and he could not help but exclaim in surprise. But he still rushed over. Whoosh! At this time, Nie Tian's body suddenly shook, and then a ball of red light surged out. Like a halo, it instantly surged in all directions. Roar! In the next moment, a low, thunderous roar rang out. Then, the red light bloomed like a lotus flower, and then a huge red beast appeared. It was as bright as the sun, and it stood in the sky. The 9th-level Chaos Beast had finally broken the seal and was once again born. This is... In an instant, everyone's eyes trembled, and they were so shocked that they could not speak. That huge red beast was like a bright red mountain, majestic and imposing, and its aura shook the heavens. It was unimaginable that Nie Tian's body had such terrifying power. High up in the sky, Xiao Wanjia felt the impact, and his body actually stopped in midair. Roar! And the huge dark beast outside of his body seemed to feel threatened. It let out a low roar, and its pair of eyes that were as deep as the abyss trembled slightly, as if it was very afraid. What's going on? My night elephant is actually afraid? Xiao Wanjia's eyes trembled. He had not expected this at all, and his face was full of shock. It turned out that the huge dark beast that he had released was called the Night Elephant, and the strange runes that he had released earlier were also the power of the Night Elephant. Night Elephant, this was his strongest trump card. Given his strength as a Tier 9 heavenly righteousness, if he used the Night Elephant, he could fight with a peak Tier 9 heavenly tribulation Holy King. But now, his Night Elephant actually cowered in front of the 9th-level Chaos Beast. This was something that he had not even dreamed of. Roar! At this time, the 9th-level Chaos Beast's blood-red eyes suddenly opened, and actually released 2 rays of red light that were like sharp blade. Then, it let out a roar to the sky, causing the surrounding void to tremble, as if the sky and earth were about to collapse. The ninth-level Chaos Beast's body was not considered big, only about 10,000 meters, and it was even smaller than some ordinary holy beast. But its body had a mysterious and powerful aura, as if it was an emperor that had walked down from the heavens. That kind of majestic aura made people's hearts tremble. Chaos descends, and all living beings bow down. As the ruler descends, who dares to challenge it? Nyetian stood on top of the ninth-level Chaos Beast. His entire body was dripping with blood, but his eyes were releasing a cold light as he stared at Xiao Wanjie. Kill! In the next instant, the corner of his mouth twitched, and he spat out a word coldly. Roar! Then, the ninth-level Chaos Beast roared, and its huge body moved instantly. Like a ball of red flames, it charged towards Xiao Wanjie and Yi Xiang. Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled, and suddenly, his face was covered in red. An incomparably cold, killing intent was approaching, and he felt the real aura of death. Chapter 3950. Boom! Boom! High up in the sky, two huge figures moved, one red and one black. Their oppression caused the void to rumble endlessly, and heaven and earth seemed to be about to explode. Everyone looked at the shocking scene in the sky, and their hearts were in their throats. Countless pairs of eyes were wide open, and they did not dare to blink at all. Boom! In the next instant, the two huge beasts collided with each other, and there was a loud bang between heaven and earth, as if a huge mountain had suddenly collapsed. Boom! 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 Immediately, a terrifying power surged out, forming a raging wave in the void, rolling like a murderous wave, and spreading wildly in all directions. In an instant, everyone felt the terrifying power sweeping towards them, and they retreated one after another. And in the sky, the murderous power swept everything, and heaven and earth fell into chaos. The ninth-level Chaos Beast, Night Elephant, Nyetian, and Xiao Wanjie were instantly engulfed. Everyone retreated for tens of thousands of meters, and the shock in their hearts was perfectly written on their faces. Countless faces were lifeless, and they were completely stunned on the spot, collectively petrified. Boom! 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 In the void, the sound of the violent power raging was incessant, and after a long time, it began to slowly weaken. Are they all dead? Someone came to his senses and looked at the dark and chaotic void, and he asked in a daze. They're probably all dead. Everyone's stiff faces began to ease slowly, but they did not dare to confirm whether Nyetian and Xiao Wanjie were still alive. The impact just now was too terrifying, and it was not something that everyone present could imagine at all. Under such a terrifying impact, most likely even a high-level holy king would not be able to survive. Everyone felt that Nyetian and Xiao Wanjie should have perished together. Look, they're still alive. But just at this time, a sharp voice suddenly sounded, and someone pointed at the void and screamed, "Not dead!" Everyone was shocked, and they stared at the void with all their might. Indeed, they saw two blood-colored figures, like two leaves, standing high up in the sky. "They're really not dead!" Everyone exclaimed in shock, and they looked at the two figures in disbelief. They did not dare to believe their eyes. Under the impact just now, Nyetian and Xiao Wanjie actually did not die. Were these two people monsters? High up in the sky, two bloodied figures stood facing each other. Their bodies were faintly trembling, and it was obvious that they had suffered heavy injuries. Nyetian's entire body was badly mutilated. Bloody wounds opened up one after another, exposing the eerie white bones. It was hard to imagine that he could still stand in such a state. On the other side, Xiao Wanjie's situation was not much better than his, or even worse. Both of Xiao Wanjie's hands were broken, and there wasn't a single piece of intact skin on his body. He was like a skeleton, but he could barely stand. "Who are you?" Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled as he looked at Nyetian from afar. He appeared to be very afraid as he asked in a trembling voice. How could he have imagined that a person whom he regarded as an ant could actually injure him to this extent? "Are you afraid?" Nie Tian's eyes darkened as he spoke coldly. Killing intent surged from his body. At this time, he still wanted to kill Xiao Wanjie. Actually, his heart was also shaken. Xiao Wanjie's night elephant had not only forced out his 9 extreme chaos beast, but he was also not at a disadvantage when facing the 9 extreme chaos beast head-on. Night elephant, what exactly was that? Why could he make the 9 extreme chaos beasts so violent? What did he rely on to fight against the 9 extreme chaos beast? To Nie Tian, Xiao Wanjie's identity was becoming more and more mysterious. However, at this time, Xiao Wanjie was clearly a little afraid. A cruel and bloodthirsty person who had killed countless people was actually afraid. This was really a little ridiculous. Xiao Wanjie's eyes trembled and his lips twitched. He couldn't speak. He was indeed afraid. This was the first time he had ever felt fear towards a martial artist. Furthermore, this martial artist was someone whose strength was far weaker than his. Perhaps he had never felt fear before, but now that he was facing Nie Tian, he was even more afraid. It was a kind of bone-chilling feeling. Xiao Wanjie, this is the end. At this time, the corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched coldly. His figure moved, and he actually walked towards Xiao Wanjie step by step. His figure was very slow, but with every step, his entire body's killing intent intensified. What do you want to do? Xiao Wanjie felt the cold killing intent coming towards him. His face was full of shock and his voice became hoarse. At this time, he was really afraid. Kill you. Nie Tian spat out word by word in a cold voice. His body actually surged with sword intent. He was severely injured, but he still wanted to kill Xiao Wanjie. Xiao Wanjie was too frightening. If he didn't kill him now, he would definitely become a big threat to Nie Tian during the 5 courtyard selection. When everyone saw this scene, their eyes were full of shock and confusion. Many people wanted to say something, but they couldn't. Who would have thought that the battle between Nie Tian and Xiao Wanjie would actually reach this stage? Nie Tian was really fierce. At this time, he still wanted to kill Xiao Wanjie. Stop! Just then, a cold voice suddenly rang out. Then, a silhouette appeared and steadily landed between Nie Tian and Xiao Wanjie, blocking Nie Tian's way. Nie Tian's gaze froze as he looked at the person blocking his way. It was a man in white. He looked very young, and his facial features were handsome. His looks were even more handsome than most women. A faint fragrance was being emitted from his body. It was not an external object, but an aura that came from his bloodline. More importantly, this white-robed man's strength had reached the 9th level of heavenly righteousness. This person looked even younger than Jun Jianxing and the others. To have such strength, he was definitely an unparalleled genius. Stop it! At this time, the man in white looked at Nie Tian and spoke softly. However, there was coldness in his eyes. His posture was also high and mighty. It was as if he wasn't talking to Nie Tian, but was giving an order. A person like this must be used to acting high and mighty. It was as if everyone had to listen to his orders. Gong Yu Zigue. Nie Tian looked at the man in white. Before he could speak, Heaven's Saintess came to his side and called out the man's name. Gong Yu Zigue. He is Gong Yu Zigue. When everyone heard this name, their expressions changed and they began to exclaim in shock and excitement. Nie Tian was slightly startled when he heard this name. Chapter 39:51. Gong Yuzigi looked at Nie Tian coldly and said, "That's enough." His expression was very cold. His condescending attitude was clearly an order to Nie Tian, and his eyes were filled with confidence, as if Nie Tian would not refuse. Nie Tian looked at Gong Yuzigi and frowned slightly. He could not help but sneer and say, "Do I know you?" His expression was very calm, but he did not hide his provocation at all, as if he was saying, "Who do you think you are? Why should I listen to you?" Everyone was stunned by Nie Tian's reaction. Their eyes trembled slightly. Nye Tian had actually said that he did not know Gong Yuzigi. That was clearly a provocation. Gong Yuzigi furrowed his brows. Obviously, he was a little angry. No one had ever dared to speak to him like this. But when he glanced at the sky saintess beside Nye Tian, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a loud voice, "I am Gong Yuzigi, the young master of the Myriad Note Demon Palace, and also a martial artist ranked 4th on the Hidden Sky list. Do you know who I am now?" With that, his eyes shone with a cold light. He was filled with arrogance. "What does that have to do with me?" Nye Tian said indifferently, looking at Gong Yuzigi with an expressionless face. Gong Yuzigi's eyes narrowed. He had not expected Nye Tian to react like that. The Myriad Sound Demon Palace was extremely powerful in the All-Heaven Saints world. It was definitely a first-rate organization, yet he seemed to be nothing before Nye Tian. Nye Tian did not take him seriously at all. "If you have nothing to do, please move." Nye Tian's eyes suddenly turned cold and he growled, "I still have things to do." Gong Yuzigi's expression changed once again. He seemed extremely ugly, but he was clearly rather fearful of the Saintess of Heaven. He stared at Nye Tian and growled, "Let Xiao Wanjie go as doing me a favor." "Doing you a favor?" Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He laughed and said directly, "Do I know you that well? Why should I do you a favor? Besides, do you think you can afford my favor?" "What do you mean?" Gong Yuzigui's pupils constricted as anger filled his eyes. He roared and a demonic energy was released. It was like a clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's ears. Pooh! Nye Tian suddenly heard the sound of thunder and immediately felt his soul and martial body being attacked. His body trembled and he directly spat out a mouthful of blood, almost unable to stand. Nye Tian. Seeing this, the Heaven Saintess stepped forward to support Nye Tian. She seemed a little nervous. "I'm fine." Nye Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and forced a smile. His eyes were cold as he stared at Gong Yuzigui and said, "Sound wave martial technique, very powerful." In Gong Yuzigi's angry roar just now, there was an extremely strong force integrated into it. It actually caused an impact on the martial artist's divine soul and martial body at the same time. Just now, Nye Tian had suffered such an impact that he had directly coughed up blood. If it was under normal circumstances, this level of attack would not be able to do anything to him. However, he was currently seriously injured, and this kind of attack almost caused him to collapse. Gong Yuzigui was from the Demon Palace of 10,000 Notes and was extremely proficient in sound wave attack. He hadn't intended to kill Nye Tian with that roar just now, but rather to intimidate him. "What I mean is, get lost." At this time, Nye Tian's eyes slightly trembled as he spoke in a cold tone. Every word that fell into Gong Yuzigui's ears was like a steel needle piercing his blood. "Get lost." These 3 words were like a slap on Gong Yuzigui's face, making him feel a burning pain on his face. No one had ever dared to speak to him like this, especially a person that he did not even think highly of. Gong Yuzigui's heart was boiling with anger. His eyes were like sharp blades as he stared at Nye Tian's face. However, the Sky Saintess beside Nye Tian was like a huge mountain that pressed down on his chest, making it hard for him to breathe. Right now, he could easily kill Nye Tian, but the Sky Saintess obviously would not just stand by and watch. Offending the Sky Saintess was no different from offending the Heaven Sacred Pavilion. This was a price that Gong Yuzigui and the entire Demon Palace of 10,000 Notes could not afford. "Kid, don't be unappreciative." After weighing the pros and cons, Gong Yuzigui suppressed the killing intent in his heart and stared cold at Nye Tian. The threat in his voice was extremely strong. "I'm unappreciative?" Nye Tianling laughed and said, "Why didn't you stand out when Xiao Wanjie was slaughtering the innocent just now? Now you want to stand out and protect him? Is his life a life and the lives of others are just paper?" He didn't know what relationship Gong Yuzhigue had with Xiao Wanjie, but this person's strength was so strong that he wasn't any weaker than the Sky Saintess. Just now, he didn't stop Xiao Wanjie from killing people, but now he jumped out and made a fuss. This was something he couldn't tolerate. Xiao Wanjie likes to kill, but that's his business. Gong Yuzhigue's eyes sank as he said cold, "You can't kill him if you want to. I insist on killing." Nie Tianling laughed. He was determined to kill Xiao Wanjie. "Can you kill it?" Gong Yuzhigue sneered and took a step forward. His aura exploded and waves of killing intent permeated the air like a waterfall, covering the entire space. "Gong Yuzhigue, you dare!" Almost at the same time, the Sky Saintess growled. Golden light bloomed from her body and blocked the killing intent in the air. Gong Yuzhigue's expression stiffened and he took a few steps back. He was clearly afraid. The Sky Saintess was heavily injured and was clearly no match for Gong Yuzhigue. However, her identity was not ordinary, so Gong Yuzhigue did not dare to attack her. He was not like Xiao Wanjie, who had the entire demon race behind him. "Your Highness, I only want to protect Xiao Wanjie. As long as this brat doesn't force me, I will not attack." Gong Yuzhigue's eyes darkened as he spoke. The Sky Saintess frowned and turned to look at Nie Tian. "Nie Tian, let's put an end to this. There's no need to make everyone so nervous." Before Nie Tian could speak, a voice was heard. Then, a figure appeared and landed next to him. "Mori Shire." Nie Tian looked at the person next to him and frowned. His expression changed slightly. The person who appeared was none other than Mori Shire, who had helped him before. The mysterious remnant soul in the heart of evil, the guy who possessed the Saint of Evil. If it wasn't for him, Nie Tian would not have been able to recover from the pressure of the 9 blood calamity forces so quickly. Chapter 39:52. Nie Tian looked at Mori Shire and could not help but frown. He was deep in thought. Mori Shire's sudden appearance seemed to guarantee that Xiao Wanjie would not die. He was a little confused. Could Mori Shire have something to do with Xiao Wanjie? "Nie Tian, trust me. Once you know Xiao Wanjie's true identity, you will definitely not want to kill him." Seeing Nie Tian's hesitation, the corner of the 12th Doom's mouth curled up into a faint smile as he said via voice transmission, "Besides, don't you find it strange that his night vision can make your 9 transcendence chaos beast go berserk?" "Night elephant?" Nie Tian's expression changed when he heard Mori Shire's words. His heart sank. So the dark beast that Xiao Wanjie had released was called the Night Elephant. What surprised him even more was that Mori Shire knew so much. Not only did he know about the Night Elephant, but he also knew about his 9-extremity Chaos Beast. Who exactly was this mysterious Mori Shire? "Nie Tian, have you thought it through?" Mori Shire asked with a faint smile. Nie Tian nodded and turned to the Sky Saint. "Your Highness, let's stop here." The Sky Saint's beautiful eyes narrowed. She was obviously a little surprised. From her point of view, Nie Tian was not the kind of person who would change his mind so easily. She could not help but look at Mori Shire a few more times. Who exactly was this guy? How could he make Nie Tian let go just like that? "Thanks." Mori Shire smiled at Nie Tian and thanked him. At this time, the surrounding crowd was stunned. Many people's eyes were focused on Mori Shire, trying to guess his identity. Nie Tian did not even care about the demon race's Devil Son and young Lord Wan Yin. Why would he care so much about Mori Shire's words? Could it be that Mori Shire's status was higher than the demon race's Devil Son and young Lord Wan Yin? "Thank you, Your Highness." Young Lord Wan Yin, Gong Yuzhigi, did not look too good either, but he still maintained some poise and smiled at Mori Shire. "You don't have to thank me." Apocalypse 12 calmly smiled, then looked at Xiao Wanjie and said, "Your Highness Devil Child, can the night image be used casually?" Although he was using honorifics, his tone was very cold, as if he was a senior talking to a junior. Xiao Shire looked at Mori Shire's eyes and said Xiao Wanjie coldly. There will be no next time. Apocalypse's gaze darkened slightly as he coldly spat out these words. Yes. Xiao Wanjie's eyes narrowed, and he nodded obediently. Gong Yuzigi watched this scene from the side. His face was completely stunned. He looked at Mori Shire as if he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. He never would have thought that Xiao Wanjie would have such a respectful attitude in front of Mori Shire. But Mori Shire did not look like anything special. He was even very young and had not even cultivated Wanjie. This was the first time that Xiao Wanjie lowered his head in front of a martial artist of the same generation. Everyone was also shocked by this scene. Many people had a dazed expression as if they were doubting their own eyes. Xiao Wanjie actually lowered his head in front of a young martial artist. Was this really not a dream? Nie Tian also furrowed his brows, and his heart was filled with doubt. Mori Shire and Xiao Wanjie probably did not know each other. But Xiao Wanjie must have recognized something from Mori Shire's body, which was why he was so respectful. Mori Shire, who exactly was he? All right, Scram. Then, Mori Shire waved his hand as if he was ordering a servant to leave. Yes. Xiao Wanjie did not object in the slightest. Instead, he agreed and turned to leave. Wait a moment. At this time, Gong Yuzigi also wanted to leave, but he was stopped by Mori Shire. My lord, do you have any orders? Gong Yuzigi's body froze. It was obvious that he was a little nervous. His voice was trembling and his teeth were chattering. You have so many tokens on you, are they useful? Mori Shire frowned and said coldly. Yes, I'll give them all to my lord. Gong Yuzigi was stunned. He didn't think that Mori Shire would know that he had a lot of tokens on him. He didn't hesitate and threw all the tokens over. Scram. Mori Shire caught the huge pile of tokens and waved his hand again. Gong Yuzigi nodded and chased in the direction where Xiao Wanjie disappeared. Is this guy sick? He snatched so many tokens. Mori Shire looked at the tokens in his hand and couldn't help but laugh. Gong Yuzigi actually had a few hundred tokens on him. This guy relied on his strength to snatch other people's tokens. He was a little sick in the heart. Nie Tian, how many tokens do you need? Mori Shire looked at Nie Tian and asked. 100. Nie Tian frowned and said a number. 100 tokens was enough for 10 cultivators to pass the test. Nie Tian didn't have so many people around him. He was just casually saying it. Anyway, these tokens were useless. Although this test was supposed to be 1 out of 10, it was impossible for there to be so many. There were many people like Xiao Wanjie and Gong Yuzigi who killed or snatched many tokens. One of them eliminated hundreds or even thousands of people. Therefore, the recruitment of the 5 academies was much more cruel than everyone imagined. Let's go. Mori Shire threw the token to Nie Tian and said. Nie Tian nodded. Since he had already obtained enough tokens, there was no point in staying here. It was more important for him to recover from his injuries. Following which, Nie Tian and the rest didn't stay any longer. They left the world immediately. Heaven's Saintess from the Heaven Dao Sacred Pavilion left with them. After Nie Tian and the rest left the world, they came to the sky above Haoyan Square. At this moment the entire square was empty. There weren't many people around. Most of the cultivators were still fighting for tokens in the inner world. At this moment, a cultivator in green from the 5 academies, who was in charge of recruitment, walked over when he saw Nie Tian and the rest coming out. He checked the tokens of Nie Tian and the rest and took them back. He gave new tokens to Nie Tian and the rest and said, "This is the token for the second round of assessment. Come here 5 days later." After that, he left without waiting for Nie Tian and the rest to reply. Nie Tian took a look at the token and kept it. He still had 5 days before the second round of assessment. He could make use of this time to recover from his injuries. Nie Tian, goodbye. Heaven's Saintess didn't say much. She took a look at Nie Tian and left. From the beginning to the end, she didn't thank Nye Tian at all. However, one could tell from her eyes that she was very grateful to Nye Tian and was shocked by Nye Tian's strength. At this moment, Nye Tian couldn't help but look at Mori Shire with a strange smile. Chapter 39:53. Mori Shire looked at Nye Tian. Of course, he knew what the latter was thinking. He smiled faintly and said, Nye Tian, I won't tell you about the 9 extreme chaos beast for the time being. Just now, you and Xiao Wanjie activated the 9 extreme chaos beast and the night elephant at the same time. We can only pray that Ni Yuan Haigen's men didn't notice. If we attract this group of people, it won't be a joke. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Mori Shire really knew about Ni Yuan Haigen, and his current reaction seemed to be very afraid of Ni Yuan Haigen. Could it be that he also had something that Ni Yuan Haigen was interested in? Vaguely, Nye Tian felt that the 9 extreme chaos beast and the night elephant had an extremely close connection. Otherwise, the two would not have resonated. It seemed that the 9 extreme chaos beast and the night elephant had a trace of the same aura. Perhaps it came from the same source. Just now, Nye Tian and Xiao Wanjie activated the 9 extreme chaos beast and the night elephant in an internal small world. Although the aura would leak out, it should not be too obvious. He hoped that Ni Yuan Haigen's men were not alarmed. Nye Tian had personally witnessed how terrifying Ni Yuan Haigen's men were. With his current strength, he could not compete with such an enemy. I'll see you in 5 days, Nye Tian. Doomsday took a glance at Nye Tian, but didn't say anything else. After bidding farewell, he turned around and left. Nye Tian looked at Mori Shire's back and could not help but smile bitterly. He did not have much contact with Mori Shire, but it was always the latter who took the lead. What's more, the latter seemed to know him very well, while he did not know much about the latter. So far, Mori Shire was like a mystery to Nye Tian, and this mystery seemed to be getting bigger and bigger. Let's go back first. The most important thing now is to recover my strength. Nye Tian smiled helplessly in his heart. He decided to return to the 10,000 yuan pavilion with Emo and the others first. Right now, his injuries were extremely serious. The most important thing for him was to recover quickly. Otherwise, he would not be able to deal with the second round of the test in 5 days. Furthermore, his 5-day agreement with the White Tiger Star Lord was about to expire. Not only had he failed to break through to the Heavenly Justice Realm, but he was also injured. Who knew what the White Tiger Star Lord would think when he saw this? A moment later, Nye Tian and the others returned to the Myriad Essence Pavilion. Kid, you're finally back. Right when they just stepped foot into the Myriad Yuan Pavilion, a sharp and ear-piercing voice that revealed undisguised killing intent resounded out. After that, a familiar face appeared before Nye Tian, and it was precisely Guan Quan. Guan Quan's cold eyes flashed with a cold light. Seeing that Nye Tian was seriously injured, he couldn't help but sneer and say, "Brat, I was right. You failed the first round of the 5 Academies test. Looking at your current condition, you must have been abused by someone." Scram! Nye Tian's eyes darkened, and his lips curled into a cold smile as he coldly spat out a single word. He could not be bothered to explain anything to Guan Quan. Right now, he was in urgent need of recuperation and had no time to waste on the latter. "Brat, you really don't know what's good for you. You still dare to be so arrogant in front of me at a time like this?" Guan Quan looked at Nye Tian, his face incomparably cold. Then he shouted, "Guards! Here!" Just as he finished speaking, 2 deep voices responded almost at the same time. Then, 2 black-clad cultivators appeared and landed behind him. One on his left and one on his right, they said in unison, "Young Master Guan, please give us your instructions." "So, you were already waiting for me." Nye Tian looked at the 2 black-clad cultivators and immediately understood. He frowned. It was obvious that Guan Quan had found trustworthy people in advance and had been waiting for Nye Tian to return. However, His speculations about Nye Tian couldn't have been more wrong. He thought that Nye Tian had not passed the first round of tests and had returned to the 10,000 yuan pavilion with his tail between his legs after being heavily injured by someone. But the truth was that Nye Tian had easily passed the first round of tests, and his injuries were caused by his battle with Xiao Wanjie. If Guan Quan knew that Nye Tian had almost killed Xiao Wanjie, it was unknown what expression he would have on his face. Seeing the change in Nye Tian's expression, Guan Quan couldn't help but laugh loudly and shout, "Kid, if you know what's good for you, apologize to me, kneel down, and kowtow to me a few times. If I'm happy, I might even spare your life." Idiot! Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he looked at Guan Quan. In the next moment, a blade made of eye power whizzed out and launched an attack. Pooh! In an instant, Guan Quan didn't even have the time to react before half of his face was forcefully sliced off by the eye force blade, and his face was badly mutilated. "You dog, you're seeking death." Guan Quan was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted and roared, "Kill him!" Yes. The two black-clad cultivators roared and released their auras. The power of the heavenly tribulation was violent and murderous, causing the surrounding space to tremble. "Stand down." Nye Tian's eyes darkened and he extended his hand, taking out the 10,000 yuan holy token. "This is..." The two black-clad cultivators' expressions changed as they looked at the 10,000 yuan holy token. They exclaimed simultaneously, "The 10,000 yuan holy token!" They clearly did not expect that Nye Tian actually had the 10,000 yuan holy token. The 10,000 yuan holy token represented the supreme status of the 10,000 yuan pavilion. Only an existence comparable to the pavilion master could possess the 10,000 yuan holy token. 10,000 yuan holy token. Guan Quan's eyes trembled when he saw the command medallion in Nye Tian's hand. His face went blank and his tongue was stuck in his mouth. Obviously, he was quite frightened. He had grown up in the 10,000 yuan pavilion and naturally knew what the 10,000 yuan holy token meant. Even his father, Master Qing Qi's disciple, Guan Shao, did not have the 10,000 yuan holy token. One had to know that Guan Zhao's status in the 10,000 yuan pavilion was among the top 5. However, even if Guan Shao came personally, he would have to bow his head to the 10,000 yuan holy token. "Young master, my lord, I was too rash." At this time, the two black-clad cultivators finally reacted. They were so frightened that they did not know how to address Nye Tian. They lowered their heads and apologized repeatedly. They were just ordinary guards of the 10,000 yuan pavilion. How could they afford to offend someone who possessed the 10,000 yuan holy token? "You two slap each other 100 times." Nye Tian's eyes were cold as he stared at the two black-clad cultivators. He enunciated each word clearly, "I want those bloody slaps." "This." The two martial artists were stunned, seemingly doubting whether they had heard wrongly. Nye Tian's punishment method was too humiliating, right? "Didn't you hear what I said?" Nye Tian's gaze darkened as he opened his mouth coldly. His cold voice made the two martial artists' hearts tremble. After the two hesitated for a moment, they finally still raised their palms. Slap, slap, slap. Following that, a resounding slap sounded in the hall. When Guan Quan saw this scene, the corners of his mouth twitched, completely speechless. Chapter 3954. Nye Tian stared at Guan Quan. His cold voice was so oppressive that the latter stood rooted to the ground. After a moment, Guan Quan's eyes trembled, and his face looked uglier than if he had eaten feces. He looked at Nye Tian with an aggrieved expression and said, "Lord, my father is Grandmaster Qing Qi's direct disciple, I kneel." But before he could finish, Nye Tian let out a low roar, like a wild beast, full of demonic intent. Guan Quan's eyes trembled as he felt the monstrous oppression from Nye Tian. He froze on the spot like a stone. Nye Tian's eyes were as fierce as a wolf, as if he wanted to eat someone up. Guan Quan did not doubt that if he did not do as Nye Tian said, the latter would kill him. I will kneel. Finally, Guan Quan knelt down. The moment his knees touched the ground, his whole body seemed to collapse. Kneel for a month. Nye Tian looked at Guan Quan, threw a cold sentence, and walked away. Guan Quan's eyes trembled, and then he collapsed on the ground like a pile of mud. Nye Tian did not care too much and walked straight to the inner hall of Wan Yuan Pavilion. He had already wasted too much time on Guan Quan. He would let this idiot kneel. Emo and the others, who were watching from the side, were deeply shaken. They hadn't expected Nye Tian to be so vicious. Nye Tian did not explain anything. After he came to the inner hall, he went straight to his room. He planned to use the next day to recover from his injuries, and at the same time, try to break through to the heavenly justice realm. Emo and the rest also returned to their own rooms to rest and prepare for the second round of tests in 5 days. Nye Tian sat cross-legged in the room and began to slowly circulate his yuan meridians to recover from his injuries. About half a day later, he felt that his martial body had recovered 30 to 40%, and his eyes suddenly opened. At this time, his martial body was still in a state of serious injury, but he had no time to recover. Next, he had to take the risk and try to break through to the heavenly justice realm. Nye Tian. At this moment, a voice rang out and a silhouette entered the room. It was Gu Ling Wuji. Upon seeing Gu Ling Wuji, Nye Tian rose to his feet and smiled faintly at him. Senior Guling. When they were at Vast Cloud Square previously, they didn't see Gu Ling Wuji. They didn't expect him to appear at this time. Gu Ling Wuji's eyes were filled with excitement. His lips curled into a faint smile as if something good was about to happen. But he didn't say it out loud. Instead, he said, Nye Tian, did you make Guan Quan kneel at the door? Nye Tian nodded and didn't explain anything. Guan Quan is Guan Zhao's son. If you punish him like this, I'm afraid it won't be easy to explain to Guan Zhao. Gu Ling Wuji frowned and said worriedly, There's no need to explain. Nye Tian's expression was calm, as if he didn't care at all. He then asked, Senior Guling, you didn't come here for this, did you? Of course not. Gu Ling Wuji snickered mysteriously. He said, I never thought you would end the test so quickly. Seeing how heavily injured you are, you must have encountered a powerful opponent. Nye Tian nodded and smiled bitterly. I fought with Xiao Wanjie. Xiao Wanjie. Gu Ling Wuji was stunned. His eyes trembled as he cried out, The demon son of the demons, Xiao Wanjie? Nye Tian nodded and said, Xiao Wanjie is cruel and bloodthirsty. He massacred everyone in the test grounds. The Saintess of Heaven tried to stop him, but she was injured instead, so I stopped him. You. Gu Ling Wuji frowned. He was stunned and momentarily speechless. Even though he was a famous senior, the name of Xiao Wanjie was like a thunderclap piercing his ears. Xiao Wanjie was a super genius ranked in the top 3 on the Hidden Sky ranking. In the entire heavenly sacred world, there were less than a handful of young cultivators below the age of 1,000 who could defeat Xiao Wanjie. However, Nye Tian was only at the 9th level of the heavenly mandate realm, yet he dared to fight against Xiao Wanjie. How could he not be surprised? So your opponent is Xiao Wanjie. No wonder you are so heavily injured. Gu Ling Wuji reacted after a while, as if he had a sudden realization. Xiao Wanjie is even more injured than me. Nye Tian smiled faintly with a calm expression. Gu Ling Wuji's expression that had just eased froze again. He was completely speechless. From what Nye Tian had said, it seemed that Xiao Wanjie had lost to him. To be exact, Xiao Wanjie had indeed lost, and almost died at Nye Tian's hands. However, Nye Tian had paid a heavy price as well. At most, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Senior Gu Ling, why have you come to find me? Nye Tian looked at Gu Ling Wuji and asked again. Only then did Gu Ling Wuji snap out of his daze. He stared at Nie Tian in astonishment. If Nie Tian had really defeated Xiuwanjie, then he could really become the martial king of the 5 academies. However, it was still too early to talk about this at this time. Guling Wuji took a deep breath and calmed down. He said, Nie Tian, I see that your birth matrix cultivation has reached the peak of life pattern, right? Yes. Nie Tian frowned. A glint of surprise flashed in his eyes as he nodded. Ever since he had integrated the Feng Tian life formula, his birth matrix cultivation speed had been very fast. At this moment, he had already reached the peak of life pattern. The first 3 realms of birth matrix cultivation were life pulse, life pattern, and life will. Nie Tian's birth matrix cultivation started very late. To be able to reach the peak of life pattern in such a short period of time, his talent in birth matrix was shocking. The reason why Nie Tian's vitality and martial body were so strong was closely related to his powerful birth matrix. Guling Wuji was one of the upper echelons of the Feng Tian life sect. There must be a deeper meaning for him to be concerned about Nie Tian's birth matrix. Very good. Guling Wuji faintly smiled and nodded with satisfaction. He casually opened his palm and a pure white pill appeared. He said, "This is the 9 Origin Fate pill that I specially refined for you. It will greatly enhance your fate horoscope. After you take it, your fate horoscope will definitely break through to the fate realm. Borrow. With the improvement of your birth matrix, you might be able to break through to the heavenly righteousness realm." Yes. Nie Tian sensed the 9 Origin Fate pill. It contained an extremely powerful life force. The majestic feeling shocked him. It seemed that Guling Wuji had disappeared for the past few days to refine the 9 Origin Fate pill. Nie Tian was very confident that he could use the power of the 9 Origin Fate pill to raise his birth matrix to the life will realm. More importantly, he had a high chance of breaking through to the heavenly righteousness realm with the help of the 9 Origin Fate pill. Chapter 3955. After Guling Wuji left the 9 Origin Fate pill, he did not disturb Nie Tian and directly left. Inside the room, Nie Tian took a deep breath, sat cross-legged, and directly swallowed the 9 Origin Fate pill. Boom! The moment the Fate pill entered his body, Nie Tian's body inexplicably shook. He immediately felt a vast and vigorous life force surging out, like a flood bursting through a dam, rushing towards the martial physique's limbs and meridians. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian felt incomparably comfortable as his injured body began to heal at an incredible speed. Such a powerful life force! Nie Tian was extremely shocked. He focused all his attention and frantically absorbed the surging life force in his body. About half an hour later, he felt that the injuries in his body had completely healed. The life force of the 9 Elemental Fate pill was simply too powerful. Nie Tian had been severely injured before, and it took him more than half a day to recover his martial body to 30 to 40%. However, the power of the 9 Elemental Fate pill only took him half an hour to completely recover. As a high-ranking member of the Feng Tian Fate sect, Guling Wuji was extremely skilled in the Tao of Fate, which was why he could refine such a heaven-defying item like the 9 Origin Fate pill. Nie Tian did not know how the 9 Origin Fate pill refined by Guling Wuji came about. The 9 Origin Fate pill was refined using a special pill technique of the Feng Tian Fate sect. In addition to containing countless heavenly treasures, the most important thing was that it contained the martial artist's own fate force. Guling Wuji used his own fate force as a guide to refine the 9 Origin Fate pill. Therefore, the 9 Origin Fate pill actually consumed Guling Wuji's own fate force cultivation, which was why it had such a heaven-defying effect. However, the 9 Origin Fate pill was not wasted on Nie Tian at all. Its effect was almost maximized. Guling Wuji must be very pleased to see this scene. After a while, Nie Tian felt that his martial physique had recovered to its best state. He let out a long breath and began to slowly condense the power of his fate force. In the fate chart space, the 9 life veins were like 9 giant snakes, releasing a vigorous life aura. The entire space was filled with a strong life aura. Life patterns could be clearly seen on the 9 life veins, as if they were carved with great care. They were full of vitality. Life veins represented the strength of one's life force. The reason why Nye Tian's martial body was so powerful and the reason why his recovery ability was so astonishing was closely related to his 9 life veins. Moreover, his continuous combat power was extremely shocking, and it was also closely related to his 9 life veins. At this moment, Nye Tian was completely focused. He gathered the life energy in his life vein bit by bit. Immediately, waves of life energy slowly gathered like rivers flowing into the sea. Slowly, a vortex of life appeared in the life matrix space, causing the life aura in the entire space to become even more intense. Nye Tian took a deep breath, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Then, he gathered his life force even faster. After a long time, the vortex of life had become extremely large. It's about time. Nye Tian felt the strong life energy in the vortex of life. Then, he moved his 9 life veins at the same time and rushed towards the vortex of life. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the whirlpool of life suffered a powerful impact and collapse. The powerful life force was then absorbed by the 9 life veins. Waves of the true meaning of life surged out and circulated in the entire life chart space. True meaning of life. Nye Tian's heart trembled slightly, and he was extremely surprised. Life matrix realm. Life vein, life pattern, life intent. The so-called life intent realm was to condense the true meaning of life. This kind of highly condensed life energy could greatly improve a martial artist's martial body, and it could even instantly heal a martial artist's injuries. As long as there was enough true meaning of life in the life matrix space, a martial artist could recover quickly through the power of the true meaning of life as long as he wasn't killed instantly. Nye Tian condensed the true meaning of life, which meant that he had broken through from the life pattern realm to the life intent realm. Swoosh! After a while, the power of the true meaning of life began to condense again, and a life vortex appeared in the life matrix space. Such a strong life energy! Nye Tian was shocked when he felt the power of the life vortex. He had heard from Gu Ling Wuji that martial artists in the life intent realm would condense a life vortex in their life matrices. The size of the life vortex varied according to the martial artist's realm. Usually, the life vortex of a martial artist in the early stage of life intent would only be the size of a baby's fist, while the intermediate stage of life intent would be the size of an adult's fist. At the peak stage of life intent, the life vortex would condense again and return to the size of the early stage of life intent. At this moment, Nye Tian had just stepped into the life intent realm. He was obviously in the early stage of life intent realm, but the power vortex that he condensed was extremely powerful. It was bigger than an adult's fist, and more terrifying than the average intermediate stage life intent martial artist. This showed that his life matrix was indeed much stronger than the average life intent martial artist. Whether or not I can break through to the heavenly justice realm depends on this. At this moment, Nye Tian let out a long sigh of relief. He decided to make use of the opportunity to break through to the heavenly justice realm. Whoosh! Having made up his mind, Nye Tian took a deep breath and, as a thought entered his mind, his vortex of life will exploded. Powerful life power spread out in all directions like raging waves, directly seeping out of his fate grid space and rushing at his meridians. In the blink of an eye, Nye Tian felt as if his martial body was being impacted. Immediately, waves of vigorous, mighty power began to strengthen his meridians, bones, and flesh. At this moment, he could clearly feel that his martial body was becoming stronger bit by bit. At this moment, it was like there was a dam in his martial body, and the life energy was like a torrent. As long as the torrent broke through the dam, he would successfully break through to the heavenly justice realm. Just a little more. After a while, Nye Tian felt that the opportunity to break through was coming. He was extremely excited, and even the blood qi in his body seemed to be agitated. Boom! At this moment, he took a deep breath, and the life vortex that had just condensed in his body released a terrifying power. Suddenly, the dam could no longer withstand it and collapsed. Boom! In the next moment, Nye Tian's body shook, and a terrifying aura was released. It was vast and mighty, and the surrounding void shook as if it was trembling. The power of heavenly justice. Nye Tian felt the power in his body instantly become stronger. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. He stood up immediately. Chapter 39:56. In the room, Nye Tian's eyes were trembling slightly. He was extremely excited. He could clearly feel that his current strength had increased by several times compared to before. The negative effects from activating the godly demon body and releasing the ninefold beast of chaos were all gone. It was as if he had been reborn from the flames. His entire body was exceptionally sharp. Nye Tian, congratulations on becoming a Saint Monarch. At this moment, Little Fat Cat's voice rang out. It was obviously very excited. You've finally reached the heavenly justice realm. It wasn't easy. Ghost Emperor's voice rang out at the same time. He was sincerely happy for Nye Tian. As Nye Tian became stronger, it would be easier to reconstruct his physical body. It was just that Nye Tian had too many things to deal with recently. Ghost Emperor had no intention of mentioning the matter of reconstructing his physical body. Saint Tianyi, you've done well. Even Lulu, who had been silent for a long time, could not help but speak up. Thank you all. Nye Tian smiled lightly. His entire body was brimming with energy. Although there was only a difference of 1 level between the 9 levels of the Heavenly Mandate Realm and the first level of Heavenly Justice, the difference between them was immense. The Heavenly Justice Realm was the last of the 3 mortal saint realms. The earlier one entered this realm, the more likely one would be able to step into the saint realm. If a warrior entered the Heavenly Justice Realm very late, his chances of breaking through to the saint realm would be much slimmer. Nye Tian was very young now, but he was already a Saint Tianyi. It was only a matter of time before he stepped into the saint realm. White Tiger Star Lord, I've broken through to the Heavenly Justice Realm. Did you see it? Nye Tian smiled lightly. His lips curled into a playful smile. He looked like he was talking to himself, but he was actually talking to White Tiger Star Lord. He knew that White Tiger Star Lord must be secretly watching him. Then, Nye Tian did not stay in the room. He pushed the door open and walked out. Nye Tian. Outside the room, Gu Ling Wuji saw Nye Tian suddenly walk out. He was stunned. Why did you come out? He asked in surprise. It turned out that he had never left, but was silently guarding outside the room. Senior Gu Ling, thank you for your 9 origin fate pill. Nye Tian immediately understood what was going on when he saw Gu Ling Wuji and bowed slightly to express his gratitude. Gu Ling Wuji frowned as he used his divine sense to sense Nye Tian. His face stiffened as his mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. He never imagined that Nye Tian only used half a day to successfully absorb the 9 essence fate pill and even broke through to the realm of destiny and realm of heavenly justice. He had originally thought that even with the help of the 9 vitality life pill, Nye Tian would need at least a few days to break through to the realm of destiny. As for whether he could break through to the realm of heavenly justice, it was still unknown. He was even worried that Nye Tian would miss the second round of tests for the 5 academies because of this. But now, Nye Tian only used half a day's time to successfully break through. How could he not be surprised? Senior Guling, are you all right? Nye Tian asked with a faint smile when he saw Guling Wuji's exaggerated reaction. I'm fine. Only then did Guling Wuji react. His eyes were still a little dazed, as if he was not quite convinced. He asked, Nye Tian, did you really break through? Nie Tian nodded and said, "It's really all thanks to Senior's 9 Vitality Life pill that I could break through this time. I wonder if Senior still has any more 9 Vitality Life pills?" Finishing, his pair of eyes emitted a green light as he looked at Guling Wuji with great anticipation. "No, no more." Guling Wuji was stunned at first but immediately reacted and waved his hands. This 9 Vitality Life pill was refined by him, sacrificing the power of his destiny. Where would he have any extra 9 Vitality Life pills? One had to know that even his direct disciple, Emo, did not enjoy this kind of treatment. It was also because of Nie Tian's special identity that he was willing to sacrifice his destiny to help Nie Tian refine the 9 Vitality Life pill. Because of the shocking bet between Nie Tian and Vast Cloud City Lord, Guling Wuji could only try his best to help Nie Tian. "All right then." Nie Tian raised his eyebrows and could only smile helplessly. He then said, "Senior Guling, I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first." Guling Wuji nodded. He should also go see how Emo and Nie Qinwan were. Nie Tian nodded slightly and immediately walked towards the hall. He wanted to wait at the entrance of the 10,000 yuan pavilion for the arrival of White Tiger Star Lord. After a while, he came to the hall. "Father, it's him." At this time, a sharp and ear-piercing voice sounded, causing Nie Tian to suddenly be stunned. He turned to look, only to see Guan Quan pointing at him with a face full of anger, and beside him stood a thin middle-aged man. "It's this guy again." When Nie Tian saw Guan Quan, he immediately felt a headache. This guy really did not grow up and provoked him again and again. But this time, the situation seemed to be a little different. The middle-aged man beside Guan Quan was a high-ranking figure in the 10,000 yuan pavilion. He was his father, Grandmaster Qing Qi's personal disciple, Guan Shao. When Nie Tian saw Guan Shao and Guan Quan, he only frowned slightly and then walked over leisurely. He glanced at Guan Quan and directly ignored Guan Shao, who was beside him, and said, "Who allowed you to stand up?" "You." Guan Quan felt the pressure in Nie Tian's eyes. His expression froze, and he was so scared that he could not speak. After the previous 2 encounters, he already had a deep fear of Nie Tian. What surprised him the most was that it had only been a day, yet Nie Tian had already fully recovered, and his aura was even stronger than before. Nie Tian made him kneel in the hall for a month, but he stood up after only 1 day. At this time, he actually felt a little guilty. "Brat, was it you who made Guan Quan kneel in the hall?" At this time, Guan Shao walked over. His eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. He stared coldly at Nie Tian and asked, "This must be Grandmaster Guan Shao, right?" Nie Tian raised his eyes to look at Guan Shao and said with a faint smile, "Your son is really too mischievous and lacks discipline. Since Grandmaster Guan Shao has no time, I can only discipline him on Grandmaster Guan Zhao's behalf." Guan Shao looked at Nie Tian and suddenly roared, "Impudent!" A furious aura filled the hall. Nie Tian's words were obviously provoking him. Furthermore, he was speaking to him with an equal attitude. This was something that he could not tolerate. Nie Tian did not seem to be as old as Guan Quan. He was completely a child who was still wet behind the ears. What right did he have to speak to him like this? What was more hateful was that Nie Tian made Guan Quan kneel in the hall. This was clearly a slap to Guan Zhao's face. In the 10,000 yuan pavilion, Guan Zhao's status was only inferior to Grandmaster Qing Qi and his senior brothers. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? "Grandmaster Guan Shao, are you angry?" Nie Tian looked at Guan Shao and let out a faint smile. He seemed to be even more provocative, causing people to want to eat him up. "Brat, don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you have the 10,000 yuan sacred token," Guan Shao growled. His eyes were incomparably red, like an enraged fighting rooster. With a faint smile, Nie Tian raised his eyebrows and asked, "Then I'm being arrogant. What can you do about it?" Are you going to kill me? Do you think I don't dare? Guan Zhao's eyes were incomparably cold. Every word he said was filled with a strong killing intent. Why don't you try? At this moment, before Nie Tian could speak, a cold voice suddenly rang out. It was like a clap of thunder that echoed throughout the hall. Chapter 39:57. When Nie Tian heard the familiar voice, he turned around and saw a cold figure standing there. It was the White Tiger Star Venerate. Nie Tian was not surprised by the White Tiger Star Venerate's appearance. He had an agreement with the White Tiger Star Venerate. As long as he broke through to the Heavenly Justice Realm within 5 days, the White Tiger Star Venerate would come looking for him. However, Xiao Chen had not expected the White Tiger Star Venerate to appear so quickly. Perhaps the White Tiger Star Venerate had always been by his side and had never left. At this moment, the White Tiger Star Venerate had a cold expression on his face. His entire body exuded a cold intent as he stood there like an iceberg, staring at Guan Shao with undisguised hostility. Huh! Guan Shao suddenly froze. Then, he turned to look at the White Tiger Star Venerate and frowned as if this was very strange. Then, his face sank as he asked, "Who are you?" Xiao Chen found this strange, not knowing when the White Tiger Star Venerate had appeared. He was an array master, so his mental strength was very strong. Even when he retracted his divine consciousness, he could clearly see the slightest movement within a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters. However, this time, someone had appeared beside him without him even realizing it. How could he not be shocked? "Let's go." The White Tiger Star Venerate's eyes turned slightly cold. Then, he ignored Guan Shao and spoke to Nie Tian. Then, he turned and left. Impudent! Guan Shao immediately flew into a rage at being ignored. He roared, "Men!" Boom! 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 The moment Guan Shao spoke, 10 odd powerful auras rushed out from a dark corner of the hall and instantly surrounded the White Tiger Star Venerate. Nie Tian immediately felt the pressure of the boundless auras. His expression changed involuntarily as he was horrified. These 10 odd black-clad cultivators were simply too terrifying. Based on their auras, they should all be Tianjue holy emperors. Emir Guan Shao had instantly called out 10 odd Tianjue holy emperors. This showed how deep the myriad Yuan Pavilion's accumulations were. Humph! Guan Shao looked at the White Tiger Star Venerate with a dark expression and said coldly, "Aren't you being too insolent? How dare you act so arrogantly in my myriad Yuan Pavilion?" "I don't want to kill anyone," the White Tiger Star Venerate said with a cold expression. "Murder!" Guan Shao was taken aback at first, then she sneered and said, "Aren't you being too arrogant? To dare kill people in my myriad Yuan Pavilion, you're tired of living." "Really?" the White Tiger Star Lord sneered. Then, his figure flickered and disappeared like a ghost. Guan Shao was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He raised his hands, but he suddenly felt a cold sensation on his neck. He lowered his head and saw a hand tightly clasped around his neck. "You!" The horrifying scene caused Guan Shao to cry out in alarm. He abruptly turned around, only to realize that Guan Shao had actually circled behind him. "If you were not Qing Chi's disciple, you would already be a corpse," the White Tiger Star Venerate said coldly. Then, he looked at Nie Tian and said, "Let's go." Nie Tian hadn't fully reacted yet and nodded blankly. The White Tiger Star Venerate led Guan Shao out of the hall. The 10 odd black-clad cultivators followed closely behind, not daring to make any sudden movements. When the White Tiger Star Venerate arrived outside the hall, he directly tossed Guan Shao out. Then, he threw a palm strike. Immediately, a violent force surged in all directions, forcing the 10 odd black-clad cultivators back several hundred meters. By the time the 10 odd cultivators reacted and stabilized themselves, the White Tiger Star Venerate and Nie Tian were long gone. The 10 odd cultivators were horrified, their hearts filled with lingering fear. That palm strike earlier had shown the White Tiger Star Venerate's terror. If a fight broke out, the White Tiger Star Venerate could instantly kill all of them. Damn it! Guan Zhao's furious voice rang out at this moment. He shouted, "Investigate! We must investigate! We must find out this person's origins! This master will kill him personally!" However, the group of black-clad cultivators looked at him strangely, as if they were looking at a clown. At the same time, the White Tiger Star Venerate led Nie Tian to a remote place in vast Cloud Sacred City. "Senior, many thanks for earlier." Nie Tian looked at the White Tiger Star Venerate and thanked him with a faint smile, which could be considered a greeting. Shao Qin felt that the White Tiger Star Venerate's character was somewhat strange. Previously, he had thought that the White Tiger Star Venerate was a rather humorous person. Now, why did he seem increasingly cold? "Qing Qi gave you the 10,000 yuan sacred token. Even without me, Guan Shao would not dare to kill you. At most he would just scare you," the White Tiger Star Venerate said indifferently. His eyes emitted a strange light as he continuously sized up Nie Tian, as if this was his first time seeing him. "Not bad. You have broken through to the heavenly justice realm." After a while, the White Tiger Star Venerate seemed very satisfied with Nie Tian. He smiled faintly and nodded. "Not bad. You have broken through to the heavenly justice realm." After a while, the White Tiger Star Venerate seemed very satisfied with Nie Tian. He smiled faintly and nodded. Nie Tian's lips curled up in a faint smile. He did not say anything, waiting for the White Tiger Star Venerate to continue. "Yes." Nie Tian nodded and said, "Senior has something that can unlock the 4th star mark Dark Seal." Qing Qi had told him before that the White Tiger Star Monarch had been ordered by the previous Astral Holy Master to search for the item that could remove the seal on the 4th star mark. However, when the White Tiger Star Monarch returned, the previous Astral Holy Master had already perished. However, the item to unlock the 4th star mark was still in the hands of the White Tiger Star Lord. "Yes." The White Tiger Star Lord nodded and opened his palm. A pitch-black vortex floated in his palm. It was about the size of an eyeball, and it released an incomparably vigorous space-time power. "This is..." Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he sensed the space-time aura within the pitch-black vortex. The shock in his heart was written all over his face. He could not imagine that such a small vortex would contain such a terrifying space-time power. When he probed with his divine sense, it seemed as if the pitch-black vortex contained the entire world. He had never seen something with such a powerful space-time power. "A universe singularity," the White Tiger Star Venerate said as he looked at the pitch-black vortex in his hand. Back then, he had nearly lost his life several times because of this universe singularity. "A universe singularity?" Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He was stunned for a moment before he asked, "What is that?" Chapter 3958. As the White Tiger Star Venerate spoke, his eyes trembled involuntarily. He seemed somewhat excited. "The strongest space-time mark." Nie Tian's expression changed slightly when he heard the White Tiger Star Venerate's words. He was extremely shocked. It was no wonder that the space-time power in the cosmic singularity was so strong. It turned out to be the strongest space-time mark. Back when he was in the Sacred World Net, Nie Tian had experienced the power of the space-time mark. The powerful space-time aura had already shocked him, let alone the strongest space-time mark. Legend has it that before the world was created, the world was empty. There was no time or space, only pitch-black darkness. At that moment, the White Tiger Star Venerate's expression changed slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "In the center of this pitch-black darkness was an extremely tiny point of nothingness. This point was called a singularity. Then, due to some kind of opportunity, the singularity experienced a big explosion. Then, time and space were born, and the present world was slowly born. The cosmic singularity is the trace left behind by the explosion of the primordial singularity. It is no exaggeration to say that the cosmic singularity contains the strongest spacetime power in this world. After saying that, the white tiger star venerate's eyes trembled slightly, and his expression became extremely solemn. This, Nyetian gulped. He had not expected the cosmic singularity to have such a mystical origin. What surprised him even more was that the birth of this world was so mystical. Given his current knowledge, he could not even understand what a world without time and space was like. What was even more incomprehensible was that this seemingly endless world actually originated from a tiny singularity. Things in this world were often very mysterious, and those things that sounded extremely mysterious were often the essence of the truth. Nyetian could not understand the creation of a world by a singularity, but he believed what the white tiger star venerate had said. Nyetian, the cosmic singularity is now yours. Following that, the white tiger star venerate extended his hand and placed the cosmic singularity before Nyetian. Nyetian's eyes trembled slightly. He was even a little worried that he would not be able to control such a terrifying thing. The white tiger star venerate could tell what Nyetian was thinking and said with a faint smile, "Don't worry. The universe singularity has its own seal. Before the seal is opened, the universe singularity is absolutely safe." Yes. Nyetian nodded and reached out to take the universe singularity. As expected, he discovered that the universe singularity was extremely stable. Even the spacetime pressure was very weak. It was very safe. "Senior White Tiger, can I fuse with the universe singularity now and unseal the fourth star trace dark seal?" Nyetian asked as he looked at the universe singularity in his hand. "Not yet." The white tiger star lord shook his head and said, "If you want to fuse with the universe singularity, you must first open the universe seal on it. Furthermore, you must first familiarize yourself with the universe singularity. Otherwise, the space-time pressure from the universe singularity will be enough to drown you instantly." This. Nyetian frowned and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Then how do I open the seal of the universe?" "Use your divine soul." The white tiger star lord nodded and said, "The universe singularity is an ownerless object. It is also the state of the ultimate collapse of time and space. The universe seal on it must be slowly opened by a warrior's divine soul. When a warrior opens the universe seal, he can imprint his divine soul on the universe singularity. When he fuses with the spacetime singularity, he will feel less spacetime pressure. So that's how it is. That makes it much simpler." Nyetian smiled faintly. This situation was somewhat similar to dripping blood to recognize an owner, which was nothing to him. He then asked, "How long will it take for me to open the universe seal?" He was now worried about the 5 academies test. He had to become the martial chief of the 5 academies. This was not only related to his bet with the vast Cloud City Lord, but also related to whether he could talk to the upper echelons of the Angel Tribe and share safety. The 5 academies test was a gathering of geniuses. If Nyetian wanted to stand out, he had to be strong enough. Hence, he had to fuse with the universe singularity as soon as possible and open the 4th star scar dark seal to increase his strength again. The white tiger star lord frowned when he saw Nyetian's anxious expression. He said, "The unsealing of the universe seal is not something that can be done in a day. There have been people who tried to unseal the universe seal before. However, the fastest person took close to 100 years to unseal the first universe seal." 100 years. Nyetian's expression changed as he cried out in shock. He knew that it was not easy to unseal the universe seal. However, he had not expected it to take so long. Furthermore, 100 years was the fastest person. Who knew how long the others had taken to unseal the universe seal? "Do you think it's very long?" The white tiger star lord looked at Nyetian, seemingly dissatisfied. "No. I can't wait that long." Nyetian's expression sank slightly as he said coldly, I have to fuse with the universe singularity as soon as possible. 100 years? You can't even wait? The White Tiger Star-Lord frowned, his expression turning even more sullen. This is a matter of life and death. I can't wait. Nye Tian frowned and said, what will happen if I fuse with the universe singularity before the universe seal is unsealed? Are you crazy? The White Tiger Star-Lord looked at Nye Tian, wondering if he had heard wrongly. What kind of person would be crazy enough to want to fuse with the universe singularity of the unsealed universe? The universe singularity contained vast and boundless space-time power. Just releasing a bit of it was enough to destroy a sacred world. Even the strongest martialists could not withstand the pressure of the universe singularity. If Nye Tian wanted to fuse with the universe singularity of the unsealed universe, he would be courting death. When Nye Tian saw the White Tiger Star-Lord's reaction, he frowned and sighed. Looks like I have to unseal the first universe seal as soon as possible. The White Tiger Star-Lord looked at Nye Tian. At the moment, he even regretted handing over the universe singularity to Nye Tian so early. Previously, he had been worried that Nye Tian was not talented enough to shoulder the responsibility of the Astral Divine Master. Now, he was worried that the Astral Divine Master before him was too crazy and that he would die sooner or later. However, it was too late for him to take back the universe singularity now. He could only hope that Nye Tian could quickly unseal the universe seal. At that moment, Nye Tian seemed to sense something. His expression suddenly changed as he exclaimed in surprise. What's wrong? The White Tiger Star-Lord asked with a frown. Chapter 3959. The White Tiger Star Venerate stared at Nye Tian with an exaggerated expression. He looked like a fool and could not react for a long time. He simply could not believe that Nye Tian had actually lifted the first seal of the universe above the universe singularity. Everything seemed like a dream. It was simply incomprehensible. The White Tiger Star Venerate had just said that even the person who had the fastest understanding of the universe singularity had taken 100 years to lift the first seal of the universe. However, Nye Tian had lifted the first seal of the universe in the blink of an eye. How could the White Tiger Star Venerate not be shocked? He really lifted the first seal of the universe. After a long time, the White Tiger Star Venerate finally reacted. His eyes trembled slightly as if he was looking at a monster. At the moment, Nye Tian was indeed a monster in his eyes. A person who could lift the seal of the universe in the blink of an eye was definitely a monster. Nye Tian's face was also filled with astonishment as he nodded stiffly. Even he didn't know what was going on. Earlier, when he had listened to the White Tiger Star Venerate's introduction of the universe singularity, he had tried to use his spiritual consciousness to sense the universe singularity. Then, he had sensed a strange energy aura, as if some sort of power had been released. When he tried to sense it again, he discovered that a seal of the universe had been lifted above the universe singularity. To him, everything was equally inconceivable. It seemed like his spirit had a special affinity with the universe singularity. The White Tiger Star Venerate looked at Nye Tian and finally calmed down. However, he still felt somewhat worried. He tried to sense the universe singularity again and confirmed that the seal of the universe had been lifted. Only then did he reveal a faint smile. Senior, can I directly merge with the universe singularity now? Nye Tian had also calmed down. He smiled faintly as he looked at the White Tiger Star Venerate. He had never expected that the seal of the universe would be lifted unexpectedly. He could not wait to immediately merge with the universe singularity. However, he knew nothing about the universe singularity. Hence, he had to be cautious about merging with it. Let's wait a little longer. The White Tiger Star Lord frowned slightly and said, You have just broken through to the heavenly justice realm, and your realm is not stable yet. Furthermore, you have only unsealed one of the universe seals above the universe singularity. It is too risky to merge now. Yes. Nie Tian nodded, agreeing with what the White Tiger Star Lord said. He was very anxious, but he had just broken through to the heavenly justice realm. If he merged with the universe singularity, the burden on his martial body would be too heavy. In any case, the 5 Academies test would not happen in a day or two. He could wait for a few more days to stabilize his realm and adapt his martial body to fuse with the universe singularity. Moreover, he could also use this period of time to familiarize himself with the universe singularity. He might even be able to continue unsealing the universe seal. Senior, how many universe seals are there above the universe singularity? Nie Tian asked the White Tiger Star Venerate excitedly. He had just unsealed a universe seal and could clearly sense that the aura of the universe singularity had undergone some strange changes. He was very curious. After the universe seal was unsealed, the space-time power within the universe singularity did not seem to be released. Instead, it was still confined within the universe singularity. However, he could sense that the space-time power was extremely vast. Once it was released, it would probably form a powerful space-time storm that might even devour a sacred world. 9. The White Tiger Star Venerate guessed what Nie Tian was thinking. He nodded slightly and said, "The universe singularity is a point where space-time is extremely collapsed. It contains its own condensing power. Unless it receives a huge impact from the outside world, the space-time power within it will not be released." I see. Nie Tian nodded. He had sensed an extremely powerful suction force from the center of the universe singularity. It was like an invisible hand had firmly confined the space-time power. Nie Tian, keep the universe singularity well. Do not mention it to anyone. The White Tiger Star Venerate nodded and instructed Nie Tian. The universe singularity was an extremely powerful thing. Many major factions were eyeing it. Senior, don't worry. Nie Tian nodded with a resolute look in his eyes. The universe singularity was already in his hand. How could it be snatched away? All right. The White Tiger Star Venerate nodded. A strange smile appeared on his face as he said, "I hope you can win your bet with City Lord Vast Cloud." Nie Tian frowned. He could not help feeling stunned. He had not expected the White Tiger Star Venerate to know about this. It seemed like he had guessed correctly. The White Tiger Star Venerate had never left. Instead, he had been protecting him in secret. It looked like the White Tiger Star Venerate had high hopes for him. Following that, the White Tiger Star Venerate gave Nie Tian a few instructions before leaving. "I wonder if that father and son are still waiting for me." Nie Tian did not linger. He smiled and immediately returned to the Myriad Yuan Pavilion. After a while, Nie Tian returned to the Myriad Yuan Pavilion. He saw a figure standing in the hall from a distance. It was Guan Shao. Beside Guan Shao, Guan Quan stood there trembling with fear. He seemed to be extremely afraid. Guan Shao had a sullen expression, his chest heaving up and down like a raging lion. With his status in the Myriad Yuan Pavilion, aside from the pavilion master and his senior brothers, everyone had to be respectful when they saw him. They even had to lower their heads when speaking. However, today, he had nearly been killed in the Myriad Yuan Pavilion, and his son had been forced to kneel in the hall. This was a blatant slap to his face. This was something he, Guan Shao, could not swallow. Guan Quan looked at Guan Shao, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and cautiously said, "Father, that person's strength is very high. He should be someone with a lot of power. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to find out who that person is. Should we ask Martial Ancestor to personally go and kill that person?" The person he mentioned was the White Tiger Star Venerate, who had nearly killed Guan Shao. Martial Ancestor was Qing Qi. Qing Qi was Guan Zhao's teacher, so Guan Quan addressed Qing Qi as Martial Ancestor. Guan Quan was not a fool. He knew that the White Tiger Star Venerate was no ordinary person, so he wanted to ask Qing Qi for help. However, Guan Quan did not know that the White Tiger Star Venerate was the same as Qin Qi, a star venerate with similar statuses. If the White Tiger Star Venerate knew this, who knew what expression he would have? No! Guan Zhao's expression sank. Then, he said coldly, now is not the time to inform teacher. If I cannot even handle such a small matter, then my title as a Grandmaster would have been in vain. Chapter 3960. When Guan Shao and Guan Quan saw the man's face, they screamed in shock. They had never imagined that the person who had appeared was actually Nie Tian. Brat, how dare you come back? Guan Quan shouted. His eyes were red as if he wanted to eat someone alive. He had thought that after Nie Tian left with White Tiger Star-Lord, he would definitely not dare to come back. He had wanted to find Nie Tian during the 5 Academies examinations. Now Nie Tian had actually returned. How could he not be surprised? Why wouldn't I dare to come back? Nie Tian smiled faintly and asked, but you, I told you to kneel for a month. Who told you to stand up? You are seeking death. Guan Quan's expression changed. With a roar, he took a step forward and was about to make a move. However, Nie Tian's expression darkened. He released a powerful aura, which scared Guan Quan so much that he took several steps back and almost fell. How is this possible? Guan Quan steadied himself. His eyes trembled and he was tongue-tied. He had not imagined that Nie Tian's aura would be so strong. Compared to a few days ago, Nie Tian's strength had obviously increased by a lot. When he was in the hall just now, he had not realized that Nie Tian's strength had broken through to the heavenly justice realm. And a few days ago, Nie Tian had only been a heavenly mandate Saint Master. It was too frightening that he had broken through to the heavenly justice realm so quickly. Ordinary warriors would need hundreds of years or even thousands of years to break through from the heavenly mandate realm to the heavenly justice realm. Even the top genius warriors would need decades. But Nie Tian had broken through in just a few days. His talent was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. Surprised? Nie Tian chuckled, a playful look on his face. Guan Quan was stunned and couldn't say a word. Nie Tian was too frightening. It was not something he could imagine. Previously, Nie Tian had killed him like a dog. Now, Nie Tian could probably kill him in an instant. He could feel the killing intent in Nie Tian's eyes, causing his heart to tremble. He even felt that Nie Tian really dared to kill him in front of Guan Shao. The 10,000 yuan sacred token in Nie Tian's hands was simply a death exemption gold medal. Even if Guan Zhao's status was extremely high, she wouldn't dare to do anything to Nie Tian. Afraid? Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, if you are afraid, then don't provoke me again. Guan Quan's eyes were trembling, and his face was lifeless. His mouth was wide open, but he couldn't say a word. Brat, you're too arrogant. At this moment, Guan Shao let out a low roar and said in a cold voice, this Grandmaster would like to see just who you are. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body's aura was released in a frenzy. It was like a raging wave that pressed down on Nie Tian. He didn't dare to kill Nie Tian, but he could still suppress Nie Tian appropriately. Heavenly Tribulation King Sage? Nie Tian frowned. His body shook, and his violent aura broke through Guan Zhao's aura pressure. Guan Shao felt a strong recoil. His body moved, and he retreated dozens of meters away. His face was swollen and red. How can you be so strong? Guan Shao stabilized his body. His eyes were extremely gloomy, and he looked at Nie Tian in horror. He didn't expect Nie Tian to be so frightening. He was a 9th Heaven Tribulation King Sage, but he couldn't suppress Nie Tian. With his strength, he could even suppress a 9th Heaven Righteousness Great Sage easily. But Nie Tian was only at the 1st Heaven Righteousness realm. It's not that I'm too strong, it's that you're too weak. Nie Tian smiled faintly. His eyes were like sharp blades, and he stared at Guan Shao. Guan Shao was a formation master, and martial arts strength wasn't his forte. Although he had the strength of a ninth heaven tribulation king, compared to martial artists of the same level, his combat power was still on the weaker side. At most, he was equivalent to an ordinary fifth heaven tribulation king sage. But Nie Tian couldn't be compared to martial artists of the same level. Although he had just broken through to the first heaven tribulation king, he could completely suppress a ninth heaven tribulation king sage. His extreme combat power was comparable to a low-level ninth heaven tribulation king sage. Brat, you're asking for death. Guan Zhao's heart felt like it was being pressed by a huge rock. He roared angrily. His entire body's aura was released, and it was much stronger than before. Then, he slapped out his palm, and it pressed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes darkened, and he immediately felt a suppressive force. Guan Shao was, after all, a ninth heaven tribulation king sage. Even if he was a little weak, he was still terrifying. Roar! In an instant, Nie Tian reacted. He took a step forward, and a huge dragon aura was released. A low dragon roar reverberated in the hall. Bang! In the next moment, the two terrifying forces collided, causing the void to rumble as if it was about to collapse. Then, Nie Tian and Guan Shao took a few steps back at the same time, and then stabilized themselves at the same time. You! Guan Shao stabilized himself, and his eyes trembled. He wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his old face instantly turned pale. In the exchange of blows just now, he was actually suppressed by Nie Tian. What about me? Nie Tian smiled lightly, and his face was full of provocation. The reason why Guan Shao was forced to retreat by him was partly because he was indeed stronger, and partly because Guan Shao didn't use his full strength. Nie Tian had the holy token of 10,000 yuan in his hands, and his identity was still unclear. Guan Shao didn't dare to kill him, and in his fear, he held back. But even so, the palm just now was enough to kill a ninth heaven righteousness martial artist. But not only was Nie Tian not killed by him, but he even directly injured him. How could he not be shocked? Most importantly, he had been suppressing his anger, and after being repeatedly defeated by Nie Tian, his blood rushed to his head, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it! At this time, Guan Shao was completely enraged. With a roar, his aura shot into the sky, and a terrifying bloodline power appeared, forming the shadow of a black tiger outside his body. Bloodline power! Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, and his expression changed. He said in a low voice, "Are you going to kill me? Brat, you're dead." Guan Shao roared, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. At this time, he was really enraged. He didn't care so much, and he really wanted to kill Nie Tian. With his identity, even if he killed someone with the holy token of 10,000 yuan, Qing Qi wouldn't go so far as to kill him. Guan Shao, have you thought it through? Nie Tian's face darkened, and he asked with a cold smile. Die. Guan Shao roared, and his aura skyrocketed again. The bloodline power became even more terrifying, and the surrounding void rumbled and trembled. At this time, no one in the surrounding crowd dared to step forward. Guan Shao and Nie Tian, one was a high-ranking member of the 10,000 yuan pavilion, and the other had the holy token of 10,000 yuan. They were not people they could afford to offend. Chapter 3961. Guan Zhao's eyes couldn't help but tremble when he saw the figure that suddenly appeared, and his face was full of surprise. He didn't expect that the person who appeared at this time was actually his eldest senior brother, Grandmaster Qing Qi's eldest disciple, Feng Tong. In the Myriad Yuan Pavilion, Feng Tong's status was second only to Qing Qi, and he was the number 2 figure in the Myriad Yuan Pavilion. Usually, the matters of the Myriad Yuan Pavilion were handed over to Qing Qi's other disciples to manage, and Feng Tong rarely showed himself. He didn't expect that he would suddenly appear at this time. What's going on? Feng Tong's face was full of cold, killing intent, and he growled in a low voice. Eldest senior brother, this kid is provoking my myriad yuan pavilion. Guan Zhao's eyes slightly sank, and he faintly sensed a trace of uneasiness, and he stepped forward and shouted. Shut up! Feng Tong roared, and his eyes were gloomy like killing intent. He glared coldly at Guan Zhao, and then turned to look at Nie Tian, bowed slightly, and said, Lord Nie Tian, are you all right? I'm fine. Nie Tian couldn't help but be puzzled when he saw Feng Tong's attitude, but he wasn't too surprised, and he just nodded lightly. He didn't expect that Feng Tong actually knew who he was, and Qing Qi must have used some means to tell Feng Tong something. Eldest senior brother, you. Guan Zhao looked at the scene in front of him, and his face changed in shock. He was extremely astonished, but he didn't know what to say. Other than Qing Qi, he had never seen Feng Tong so respectful in front of anyone. Guan Zhao, do you know who he is? Feng Tong said in a low voice, and his face was cold, and he asked coldly. Who is he? Guan Zhao was stunned, and he was obviously a little afraid, and his tongue was spinning. He is Master's friend, and Master said that seeing him is like seeing Master. Feng Tong said in a low voice, and then he couldn't help but turn to look at Nie Tian. Nie Tian frowned for a moment, and sure enough, Qing Qi said something to Feng Tong. This. Guan Zhao's eyes trembled violently, and the corner of his mouth twitched, and he couldn't say a word. What is this? Quickly apologize to Lord Nie Tian. Feng Tong's face sank, and he reprimanded coldly. Yes. Guan Zhao snapped out of her daze and nodded repeatedly. Then, she turned to look at Nie Tian, her face as grim as it could be. She seemed hesitant, as if she couldn't say a word. Is Master Guan Zhao unwilling to lower his head in front of me? The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He smiled playfully, appearing extremely provocative. I wouldn't dare. Guan Zhao forced a smile and bowed repeatedly, saying, This lowly one had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended Sir Nie Tian. I hope Nie Tian is magnanimous enough to forgive me. Grandmaster Guan Zhao, you wanted to kill me just now, is this considered an offense? Nie Tian frowned and said with a cold expression, Even if you didn't know who I was before, you should have recognized the sacred token of 10,000 yuan. You clearly know that I have the 10,000 yuan sacred token, but you still want to kill me. Saying that you profaned the holy writ of myriad yuan, no. Isn't that too much? This. Guan Zhao's face turned sallow and ugly, completely at a loss for words. In the 10,000 yuan pavilion, not recognizing the 10,000 yuan sacred token means not recognizing the pavilion master. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched into a sinister smile as he continued saying, You are the pavilion master's personal disciple. Not recognizing the pavilion master is a crime of deceiving your master. I really didn't. Guan Zhao panicked when he heard Nie Tian say the word, deceiving, and was completely at a loss of what to do. Deceiving one's master was too serious a crime. He couldn't afford to bear it even if he had a head. He was indeed impulsive just now, but it was too far-fetched to say that he was guilty of deceiving his master. Eldest senior brother, you know me. I'm absolutely loyal to Master. Guan Zhao's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. He hurriedly looked at Feng Tong, obviously seeking help. Sir Nie Tian, junior brother Guan Zhao may be a bit domineering usually, but he would never dare to say that he deceives his master even if he had 10,000 guts. Feng Tong's face was gloomy. He turned to Nie Tian and said with a face full of smiles, Junior brother Guan Zhao really went overboard just now. As his senior brother, I apologize to Sir Nie Tian on his behalf. Having said that, Feng Tong bowed deeply to Nie Tian in a respectful manner. Guan Zhao knows his mistake. Please forgive me, Sir Nie Tian. Guan Zhao was stunned at first. He didn't expect Feng Tong to go this far, but he immediately reacted and also bowed to apologize. Grandmaster, please get up. Guan Zhao's mistake doesn't need you to help him bear it. Nie Tian stepped forward and helped Feng Tong up. He then looked at Guan Shao and said, Grandmaster Guan Shao, I can let bygones be bygones. But this son of yours has caused me a lot of trouble. Having said that, Nie Tian's eyes shifted to Guan Quan, who was trembling in fear at the side, not daring to let out a fart. Nie Tian's eyes looked extremely playful. Sir Nie Tian, Guan Quan is still young. As his father, I have neglected to discipline him. If he has offended Sir Nie Tian in any way, please show mercy, Sir Nie Tian. Guan Zhao's eyes slightly trembled and his face instantly tensed up. He knew Nie Tian's means and was a little afraid that Nie Tian would take Guan Quan's life. He didn't know Nie Tian's true identity, but judging from Feng Tong's attitude, it was absolutely not a trivial matter. If Nie Tian insisted on killing Guan Quan, even he might not be able to protect him. Junior brother Guan Shao, this son of yours is arrogant and domineering. Many people in the pavilion have long complained. I think it's time to discipline him. At this time, Feng Tong took a step forward and said coldly, looking at Guan Quan, this master punishes you to watch over the myriad array platform. Within 100 years, if you can't advance to become a rank 4 sacred array master, then stay in the myriad array platform forever and never come out again. When Nie Tian heard Feng Tong's words, he could not help frowning. How could he not hear that Feng Tong was blatantly shielding him? On the surface, Feng Tong was punishing Guan Quan, but in reality, he wanted to save Guan Quan's life. He was also afraid that Nie Tian would take Guan Quan's life in a fit of rage. This, Guan Quan still did not understand. His face froze, somewhat unwilling to accept such a punishment. Rascal, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and thank your eldest martial uncle. Guan Shao was shrewd and immediately reacted, growling in a deep voice. Guan Quan's gaze quivered. Only then did he kneel down and thank Feng Tong. Since this master has spoken, then this matter shall be settled. Nie Tian smiled faintly, considered giving Feng Tong face. After all, the other party saved him just now. But following that, he looked at Guan Quan again and said, But what I said before still stands. You still have to kneel in the hall for a month. Yes. Guan Quan's face was ugly, but when he sensed the oppressive gaze from Nie Tian, he immediately nodded. Chapter 3962. Then, Guan Quan ran over to kneel as punishment, and Guan Shao left as well. At that moment, Feng Tong looked at Nie Tian and solemnly introduced himself. Lord Nie Tian, I'm Feng Tong, Grandmaster Qing Qi's eldest disciple. Grandmaster Feng Tong, thank you for what you did just now. Nie Tian smiled faintly. He finally had the chance to size up the Grandmaster before him. Feng Tong looked a little old. Judging from his appearance, he looked even older than Qing Qi. However, his body was lean and he looked very spirited. Grandmaster Feng Tong, why are you here all of a sudden? Nie Tian didn't waste any time and asked directly. Master Nie Tian, Master sent me a message not long ago. He asked me to enter the 9 extremities and you too. Feng Tong nodded slightly and said in a low voice. Okay, let's enter the 9 extremities now. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. Then, the two of them entered the 9 extremities. Master! Feng Tong called out respectfully when he saw Qing Qi in the 9 extremities. Feng Tong, you're here. Qing Qi nodded slightly, but his face was very ugly and pale, as if he had just been seriously ill. Grandmaster Qing Qi, how is it? Nie Tian stepped forward and looked at Qing Qi nervously. Nie Tian, something unexpected happened. Qing Qi frowned, his expression was also nervous. What is it? Nie Tian's eyes trembled violently. He lifted his head and looked up into the sky. He saw a giant array standing there. The power of the array was circulating in the air. It was as if the heaven and earth were going to yield to this power. He was shocked. It had only been a few days and Qing-Chi had built such a giant array. It was too amazing. At this moment, Rui Qianyu was lying in the middle of the array. She looked like she was in a deep sleep. Nie Tian noticed that Rui Qianyu was surrounded by a strange red light. It was like a protective shield that covered her whole body. There was an extremely strong bloodline aura. Nie Tian, Lady Rain's 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline is much stronger than we imagined. She can't hold on much longer. We must quickly awaken her 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline. Qing-Chi frowned and said in a deep voice. When are you going to awaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman for her? Nie Tian frowned, his expression changing slightly as he asked. You'd better do it now. Qing-Chi frowned as a hint of worry flashed through his eyes. He said, however, I've just discovered that Lady Rain's 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline seems to have undergone some sort of mutation. This mutation has caused the power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman to become even more terrifying. 10 Annihilation Evil Woman mutation. Nie Tian's expression changed, and he couldn't help but be stunned. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline mutation was something he had never expected. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline was even stronger than the 9 great ancient bloodlines. If it underwent another mutation, how terrifying would it be? However, if the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman became more terrifying, it would put Rui Qianyu in an even more dangerous situation. At this time, Fat Cat's figure appeared and urgently said, Grandmaster Qing-Chi, Rui Qianyu can't hold on much longer. Help her awaken her bloodline now. Yes. Qing-Chi firmly nodded his head, then looked at Feng Tong and said, Feng Tong, the power of this formation is too strong. I can't maintain it alone. Come help me. Okay. Feng Tong firmly nodded his head, his expression determined. What about me? Nie Tian frowned and asked urgently. Nie Tian, originally, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakening does not require anyone else. However, the situation has changed. I need someone with a strong enough bloodline to resist the power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline. Qing-Chi frowned and said with a cold expression. What do you mean? Nie Tian frowned, not quite understanding. When the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakens, it will produce an extremely strong bloodline impact. Originally, this formation could withstand the power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline impact. At this time, Fat Cat looked at Nie Tian and explained, but now, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's power has increased. The formation alone cannot withstand the power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline impact. We need a martial artist with a bloodline no weaker than the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman to use the power of their own bloodline to resist the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's attack and weaken it. You, Nie Tian, are the best candidate. Good. Nie Tian's eyes slightly narrowed. He firmly nodded and said, Then we will begin immediately. Nie Tian, remember, you must do your best to weaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline aura. Qing-Chi frowned and said seriously, The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman is a forbidden bloodline. It is not tolerated by the world. If the bloodline aura spreads outside the 9 superbs and is detected by others, then Lady Ruoyu will be in danger. I understand. Nie Tian nodded, his eyes determined. In the past, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline was too strong and was destroyed by other martial artists. That was why it had disappeared for a long time. If anyone knew that Rui Qianyu had awakened the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline, they would definitely kill her. Although the 9 superbs was an internal world, it was not completely sealed off. Some powerful auras would still spread out. Then let us begin. Qing-Chi took a deep breath and nodded. All right. Nie Tian nodded and followed the little fat cat's instructions, leaping into the spell formation. What a strong pressure! The moment he entered the formation, Nie Tian felt the strong pressure from the surrounding space. He could not help but be shocked. He did not expect that he would feel such a terrifying power just by entering the array. Nye Tian, where you are now is the secondary array eye of the formation. No matter what happens next, you cannot leave the secondary array eye. Do you understand? Qing Qi's silhouette rose into the air and shouted. Understood. Nye Tian replied solemnly. His eyes were filled with determination. All right, let us begin. Qing Qi's eyes dimmed as he spoke. With a thought, the entire formation began to move. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Nye Tian felt the pressure in the surrounding space increase again, causing his expression to change involuntarily. What was more terrifying was that the pressure was still increasing. He felt like his body was being torn apart and pain spread throughout his body. Boom! 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 Just then, in the 9 halls of the formation, 9 terrifying runes appeared. They quickly gathered in the air, and formed the silhouette of Rui Qinyu. I doppelganger! Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he exclaimed in his heart. These 9 phantoms were obviously the I doppelganger formed by Qing Qi with the power of Rui Qinyu's Saint Rune 9-color pupil. After the 9 I doppelganger appeared, Nye Tian immediately felt that the pressure on his body had weakened a lot. Chapter 3963. What a terrifying bloodline aura! Nye Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble when he sensed the bloodline aura within the grand formation. His expression changed while he was extremely shocked in his heart. He had never seen such a terrifying bloodline aura before. The power of the bloodline in the void caused the blood in his body to churn and even feel restless. He did not expect the bloodline aura of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman to be so terrifying, far exceeding his expectations. Within the entire formation, the aura of the formation runes was covered by the bloodline aura. The entire formation was filled with a silent, cold, and murderous aura. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman is indeed a bloodline more powerful than the 9 great ancient bloodlines. Such a powerful bloodline aura can almost suppress all other bloodline powers. Nye Tian was shocked. His eyes trembled slightly. At this moment, even he could faintly feel the suppression of the bloodline. The God-Fiend origin embryo was the number 1 taboo. Compared to the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman, it was hard to say which was stronger. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a terrifying roar came from within the formation. The entire formation began to shake violently as if it was about to collapse. Steady. Qing Qi stood high up in the sky, his aura surging like a mountain as he forcefully stabilized the formation. Feng Tong nodded and carefully assisted Qing Qi. Under the impact of the bloodline power, some of the formation runes were instantly shattered, causing the formation to shake. Qing Qi and Feng Tong had to find the missing formation runes as soon as possible and then refine them to fill in the gap. Otherwise, the formation would become more and more damaged, and it would be difficult to maintain the formation. If the formation was destroyed, then Nye Tian and Rui Qinyu would be instantly engulfed by the power of the formation and the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. Fortunately, Qing Qi and Feng Tong were both grandmasters of spirit arrays, and their attainments in the Tao of spirit arrays were definitely among the top 5 in the world. With the two of them maintaining a spirit array together, it was very easy for them to ensure that the spirit array operated normally. However, inside the formation, Nye Tian did not have it easy. Not only did he have to withstand the pressure of the formation, but he also had to withstand the bloodline pressure of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. Although Rui Qinyu and his 9 doppelgangers were helping him to withstand the force, it was still a little difficult for him to support it. Boom! At that moment, an even more powerful bloodline power appeared. Nye Tian could feel the impact, and his body could not help but sway. Nye Tian, hang in there. Fat Cat's expression changed when she saw this, and she cried out in shock. Nye Tian's position was the secondary eye of the Grand Formation, which was extremely important to the entire Grand Formation. If he couldn't hold it or moved, No matter how heaven-defying Qing Qi and Feng Tong's attainments in the Tao of Arrays were, they wouldn't be able to maintain the Grand Formation's operation. Bang! Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as his body trembled. The fiend god Qi in his body surged and rushed towards the void. In an instant, the two bloodline powers collided, causing the void to rumble. A terrifying force surged out in all directions, like a raging wave, and the surrounding runes were instantly shattered, engulfed and crushed. Boom! At that moment, Nie Tian felt the pressure of the Grand Formation skyrocketing. It was as if an invisible giant hand had enveloped his body and was about to crush him. The sudden pressure made Nie Tian's expression change instantly. His entire body felt like it was about to be torn apart. But he didn't make a sound, nor did he move half a step. He just endured it all. Fortunately, he was already in the heavenly justice realm, and his martial body was much stronger than before. Otherwise, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to withstand such a strong pressure. Next, Nie Tian felt the bloodline aura in the Grand Formation continue to grow stronger, but it was no longer as violent as before. It was growing steadily. At that moment, Rui Qianyu was lying flat in the eye of the array. Her face was calm, as if she was in a deep sleep. But in her body there was an earth-shattering transformation. An incomparably strong bloodline power rushed out like a wild beast. Wherever it passed, it made her flesh and bones feel like they were boiling and burning. The aura of blood filled the entire Grand Formation, covering the space of the Grand Formation with a layer of blood mist. It was very eerie. Under the shroud of this bloodline power, it gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. It was suffocating. Does the 10 Annihilation Evil Female really have the power to destroy the world? Nie Tian took a deep breath and looked at Rui Qianyu, who was surrounded by the aura of blood. His eyes trembled slightly. According to Fat Cat, the legendary 10 Annihilation Evil Female had the power to destroy the world. When the 9 Heavens Evil Female descends to kill, all worlds will be annihilated. It was precisely because of this that people were so afraid of the 10 Annihilation Evil Female. At that moment, Nie Tian felt the power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Female up close and was shocked. Although he was not old and had not lived for many years, he had seen countless martial arts geniuses. These people also had extremely strong bloodline power, but the bloodline power of those people was far inferior to the 10 Annihilation Evil Female. The 10 Annihilation Evil Female contained the power to destroy the world. That kind of powerful aura was really too terrifying. Before this, Nie Tian could not imagine that such a powerful bloodline power existed in the world. The following period of time was relatively calm. The aura of the 10 Annihilation Evil Female's bloodline slowly became stronger. Nie Tian felt that the entire Grand Formation was like an active volcano, waiting for the moment the 10 Annihilation Evil Female awakened and the volcano would erupt completely. After a long time, Nie Tian felt that the aura of the bloodline in the Grand Formation had become extremely strong. The entire Grand Formation shook under the impact of this power, as if it was about to collapse. Feng Tong, the 10 Annihilation Evil Female, is about to awaken. You must hold on. Qing Qi seemed to feel something. His face was extremely gloomy as he looked at Feng Tong and said, "Yes." Feng Tong nodded heavily. His forehead was covered with beads of sweat. He was obviously a little nervous. Just now, when he was stabilizing the Grand Formation, he had already seen the horror of the 10 Annihilation Evil Female. He did not know what kind of impact this terrifying bloodline power would have on the Grand Formation when it awakened. At this time, Fat Cat looked at Nie Tian and said, "Nie Tian, get ready to release the power of the demon origin embryo." "Yes." Nie Tian nodded heavily. His eyes were slightly trembling with excitement. Under the influence of the 10 Annihilation Evil Female, the demon origin in his body had long been restless. He really wanted to know how strong the legendary 10 Annihilation Evil Female's bloodline was. Chapter 3964. Qingqi looked at Nie Tian with trembling eyes. He didn't know that Nie Tian had such a terrifying bloodline power. He was worried that if Nie Tian's bloodline power was much weaker than the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's, it might cause irreversible damage to his martial body when their bloodlines collided. But now, he felt that Nie Tian's bloodline power was even stronger than the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's. At least, the celestial demon reverse mark that appeared on Nie Tian's body was an extremely powerful bloodline mark, which Qingqi had never seen before. Boom! At that moment, Raindrop Thousand Leaves, who was in the center of the matrix, moved. Her body trembled and a boundless amount of bloodline power was unleashed. The space around them shook and the entire matrix shook violently. It seemed as if it would collapse at any moment. Raindrop Thousand Leaves' body trembled violently. "Hold on!" Qingqi's eyes shrank and he growled in a low voice. Feng Tong's face was even more nervous. His nerves were stretched to the extreme, and he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. His heart was in his throat. If the Grand Formation could not hold on any longer, the destructive power produced in the instant of its collapse would be sufficient to annihilate everyone present. Even the 9 extremities world before them would be destroyed along with it. Ah! In the next instant, Thousand Leaves suddenly let out an incomparably miserable howl. It was as if the heavens and earth were mourning, filling the entire space with a tragic atmosphere. The voice of the evil woman. Qingqi's eyes trembled, and his face froze for a moment. He then said in a daze, "The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman is awakening." The voice of the evil woman resounded through the heavens and earth. It was the sign of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's awakening. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman, the power to destroy the world. At the same time, Fat Cat's eyes trembled with excitement and fanaticism. It was as if she was driven by some kind of atmosphere and became a little evil. "Come on, let me see how strong the legendary power to destroy the world is." Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he was looking forward to it. Hua! At this moment, a vast and boundless bloodline power was released from Rui Qianyu's body, forming a huge scarlet ripple in the void. Like a huge wave, it surged and spread in all directions. "He's here." Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He snorted in his heart and the fiend god energy around his body surged. His entire body was like a ball of black flames, instantly exploding and burning. Boom! In the next instant, the power of his bloodline instantly became countless times stronger under the stimulation of the formation runes. The soaring aura of the Godfiend surged and directly met the scarlet ripples in the void. When the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakens, she will release an extremely powerful blood-devouring power. If it was just Nie Tian's own bloodline power, of course, he would not be able to contend with such power. The function of the formation was revealed when the bloodlines collided. On the one hand, the formation runes would greatly weaken the blood-devouring power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman, and on the other hand, it would greatly enhance the fiend god energy released by Nie Tian. Only when one side was weakened and the other was strengthened, could the two forces have the effect of colliding and releasing slowly. Qingqi and the others looked at the two bloodline powers in the formation and were momentarily stunned, deeply shocked by the power of the two forces. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline was stronger than Qingqi had expected. What shocked him even more was that Nie Tian also had a bloodline power that was comparable to or even stronger than the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. Bang! At this moment, in the formation, the two bloodline powers collided with each other, directly causing a loud explosion. The surrounding space trembled and suddenly countless terrifying bloodline vortexes appeared, sucking in the surrounding formation runes and instantly swallowing them. Boom! 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 A large number of formation runes were swallowed, and suddenly, the entire formation shook violently. The entire formation was like a huge ship in a raging tsunami. If it was not careful, it would be directly swallowed up. Master, the formation is about to collapse. Feng Tong felt the huge pressure from the formation, as if the whole formation could not hold on any longer. He was so scared that he directly shouted out loud. Hold on! Qing Qi's face was incomparably gloomy. With a deep roar, lines of formation runes gushed out from his palm, forcibly repairing the broken formation. At the same time, the figure of Fat Cat also moved. Waves of glaze qi were released from her body, like a five-colored rainbow, vast and endless, shrouding the formation. Wherever the glaze qi passed, the broken formation runes were repaired, and the constantly shaking formation gradually stabilized. At this time, after the collision of the two bloodline powers, the vibration caused by the collision gradually weakened, and the whole formation was slowly returning to its original calm. Nie Tian's figure stood coldly, his eyes slightly trembling. Looking at his body again, he found that it was actually covered with dripping wounds. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline power had forcibly torn apart the Devil God inscription on his body. But fortunately, he had still withstood the impact of the bloodline power. Master Qing Qi, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman has awakened, right? Nie Tian saw that the formation had returned to its original calm state and asked Qing Qi. Yes. Qing Qi nodded and let out a long sigh of relief. His taut face finally relaxed a little. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's awakening was extremely dangerous, but in the end it was more daunting than dangerous. Nie Tian nodded slightly, his heart letting out a sigh of relief. At this time, the bloodline aura in the formation gradually weakened, and Rui Qianyu's 9 doppelgangers also disappeared. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. However, Rui Qianyu was still lying in the eye of the formation, and there seemed to be no signs of her waking up. Master Qing Qi, when will Rui Qianyu wake up? Nie Tian frowned and looked at Qing Qi again. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman has awakened. Logically speaking, Miss Rui Qianyu should have woken up by now. Qing Qi frowned and said with a puzzled expression. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman had already awakened, and the bloodline power in Rui Qianyu's body should have disappeared by now. It was a little strange that she had not woken up. Nie Tian's face darkened slightly, and he moved his divine sense towards Rui Qianyu. Boom! But at this moment, Rui Qianyu's body moved, and she stood up directly. Her eyes suddenly opened, and suddenly, a huge wave of pupil power surged out, causing the originally stabilized formation to shake with a loud bang. Rui Qianyu! Nie Tian saw that Rui Qianyu had woken up, and his eyes could not help but tremble as he called out in surprise. But the next moment, he felt that something was wrong. Rui Qianyu's eyes were bloodshot, and she stared at him coldly, with a cold, killing intent. Chapter 3965. Rui Qianyu's body was filled with murderous intent. She moved at an extremely fast speed, leaving only a shadow in the void. A terrifying murderous aura rushed towards Nie Tian. In an instant, Nie Tian felt the murderous aura coming towards him. His expression changed drastically. The destructive aura that rushed towards him contained an extremely strong aura of death. It even shrouded the entire grand formation in a murderous aura. Watch out! The sudden scene made Qing Qi's eyes tremble, and he exclaimed in shock. He never thought that Rui Qianyu would suddenly lose control and try to kill Nie Tian. Qianya, it's me. At this critical moment, Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He shouted in a low voice, and then the sword will in his body surged out and formed a sword barrier around his body. At the same time, the astral force appeared and the astral soul shield was activated. Bang! Bang! In the next moment, the destructive force descended and 2 muffled sounds were heard in the void. The sword barrier and the astral soul shield collapsed almost at the same time. Pfft! Nie Tian's body trembled slightly. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was directly thrown out. Nie Tian. Seeing this, Qing Qi's expression changed drastically and he exclaimed in shock. Nie Tian stabilized his body in midair. His face was as pale as a sheet and there was a bloody hole on his chest. It looked very frightening. That was close. Fortunately, he dodged a little in an instant. Otherwise, his heart would have been pierced through. The destructive force was too terrifying. It broke through his double defense in an instant. If his reaction was a little slower, he would have been a corpse by now. 10 annihilations, kill without mercy. At this moment, Rui Qianyu walked over step by step. Her body was surrounded by the destructive force of darkness, and her entire body was filled with the aura of death. She was like a god of death that walked out from hell. Qianye, I am Nie Tian. Nie Tian felt the oppression of the destructive force. His eyes trembled slightly and he spoke in a low voice. But Rui Qianyu's eyes were cold and murderous, like a ferocious god of death. She didn't know him at all. What was going on? Nie Tian, quickly leave the grand formation. She's being controlled by the destructive force. At this time, Qing Qi's voice resounded. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. His figure hadn't even moved when an even more terrifying dark energy of destruction had appeared. It was like an arrow that had left the bow, and it was fierce and murderous to the extreme as it assaulted him. In an instant, the chill of death enveloped him, causing Nie Tian's body to stiffen slightly. The evil woman's destructive power was too terrifying. It contained some sort of barrier power that seemed to be able to freeze time and space. Boom! In that instant of killing intent, Nie Tian's countenance sank. Draconic qi gushed forth from his body, directly breaking through the envelopment of the darkness energy. The astral wings on his back shook violently as he retreated several hundred meters away. Pooh! However, the destructive force was too fast. It arrived in the blink of an eye, leaving a deep wound on Nie Tian's chest. Instantly, blood gushed out. Nie Tian had just experienced a clash of bloodlines and was already heavily injured. Now that he was injured again and again, his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Swoosh! However, before he could stabilize himself, Rui Qianyu attacked again. The destructive force in her body surged and her silhouette transformed into a black shadow in the air. The dark energy enveloped the entire space and forcefully pressed down on Nie Tian. Nie Tian's countenance sank. He knew that Rui Qianyu had lost control. Instantly, the draconic qi in his body surged out like raging waves. A gigantic shadow of a dragon appeared, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Roar! In the next instant, a draconic roar rang out, after which, the shadow of the dragon moved and pressed down on Rui Qianyu. Bang! The space shook. Under the tyrannical impact, Rui Qianyu's silhouette was forced to retreat. Nie Tian seized the opportunity. The wings on his back fluttered, and he instantly retreated out of the array. Seal! At this moment, Qing Qi shouted. Both of his hands moved in the air. One after another, runes appeared and flowed into the array like a waterfall. 10 annihilations, kill without mercy. Inside the array, Rui Qianyu steadied herself. She spat out the cold words again, after which, the destructive force in her body surged out in a frenzy. She wanted to force her way out of the array. However, at this moment, runes appeared one after another. Like a tsunami, they rushed towards Rui Qianyu. In an instant, the latter was enveloped by the runes and was imprisoned. It would be very easy for such a huge formation to imprison a person. Before Rui Qianyu could resist, she was trapped by the array. However, she was still releasing her destructive force in an attempt to fight against the power of the array. However, the power of the array was like a mountain. It was not something that Rui Qianyu could fight against. Grandmaster Qing Qi, what's going on? Will Qianyu be okay? Nie Tian retreated out of the array and instantly came to Qing Qi's side. He asked anxiously. He was worried that the power of the array was too strong and might hurt Rui Qianyu. The power of the 10 annihilations evil woman is too strong. Rui Qianyu is being controlled instead. Qingqi frowned and said in a low voice, "Now, I can only use the array to temporarily trap her and then try to suppress the power of the 10 annihilations, evil woman." This. Nie Tian's face darkened. He worriedly asked, "Will she be okay?" "She'll be fine for now." Qingqi nodded. With his attainments in arrays and his ability to control arrays, Rui Qianyu would be safe in the array. However, he still had other concerns. He said, "I need to find a power that can suppress the 10 annihilations, evil woman, as soon as possible. Otherwise, Rui Qianyu will lose her mind if she is controlled by the 10 annihilations, evil woman, for a long period of time. If she is controlled by the 10 annihilations, evil woman, for a long period of time, she might lose her mind." This. Nie Tian's face stiffened. He was momentarily speechless. He did not expect that things would turn out like this. The stronger the power in the world, the harder it is to control. Qingqi sighed and said, "When power reaches a certain level, it is no longer the martial artist who controls the power, but the power that controls the martial artist. In Lady Ruoyu's current situation, as long as we can find something to help her temporarily suppress the 10 annihilations, evil woman. Once she becomes stronger, she will naturally be able to control the 10 annihilations, evil woman." "Senior, what do you plan to use to suppress the 10 annihilations, evil woman?" Nie Tian became cold as he looked at Qingqi and asked. "This can't be rushed." Qingqi's face was gloomy. He said, "I am still not very clear about the power of the 10 annihilations, evil woman. I must first understand the 10 annihilations, evil woman, before I can decide what to use to suppress this power." "Yes." Nie Tian nodded. It seemed like there was no other way even if he was in a rush. In fact, what happened to Rui Qianyu had happened to him before. His demonic and divine power had also gone out of control before. Later on, he had to rely on the heavenly shackles to suppress the two powers and temporarily stabilize them. Now that he had become much stronger, he could basically control the demonic and divine power. It was because the 10 annihilations, evil woman, was too powerful that Rui Qianyu lost control. It was almost the same as what happened to Nie Tian back then. So now, she must find a power that could help her temporarily suppress the 10 annihilations, evil woman. Qingqi looked at Rui Qianyu with a deep frown, seemingly very worried. Chapter 3966. Nie Tian looked at Rui Qianyu. There was no other way for now. At least Rui Qianyu was safe in the formation. In short, the awakening of the 10 annihilation evil woman was a success. "I hope the aura produced when the 10 annihilation evil woman awakens has not been detected," Qingqi said with a frown. He was worried that the matter of the 10 annihilation evil woman would be exposed. Although everything before them was happening within the 9 extreme realms, and there was also the protection of the grand formation, some of the stronger cultivators had a special ability to sense powerful auras. If the 10 annihilation evil woman was detected, it would be troublesome. Fortunately, when the 10 annihilation evil woman awakened, there was a clash of bloodlines with Nie Tian's godfiend original embryo, so the aura was weakened. Even if a small amount of the aura escaped, it was almost impossible to accurately locate it. "Nie Tian, what is your bloodline power?" Qingqi looked at Nie Tian and asked. "Godfiend original embryo." Nie Tian frowned and nodded slightly. He did not expect Qingqi to not know about the Godfiend original embryo. Godfiend original embryo. Qingqi's expression changed slightly when he heard these words. He seemed to think of something and wanted to say something, but he swallowed it back. Nie Tian saw Qingqi's reaction and thought that it was the first time the latter had heard of the Godfiend original embryo. In fact, this was not a big deal. The Godfiend original embryo was very famous in the realms. Many experts knew about it, but not many people in the holy world. Moreover, many powers that were highly respected in the realms or planar worlds were not cared about in the holy world. For example, the demon fire and the 9 great origins. In fact, Tian felt a little strange about the 9 great origins. He could understand why no one cared about the power of the demon fire. After all, it was not very strong and was very limited. However, the 9 great origins were different. Although the holy world was different from the realms and planar worlds, the power element was the same. It was still the 9 origin power. But in the holy world, very few people talked about the 9 great origins. Perhaps Tian was too weak, and had not come into contact with any powerful cultivators, so he knew too little about the saint's world. Qingqi looked at Tian and asked, Tian, I saw you use eye power and some kind of powerful bloodline mark. These are the powers derived from the fiend god embryo, right? Tian nodded. Suddenly, he felt that Qingqi's expression was a little strange, as if he was worried about something. His eyes, the demon eye, and the heaven punishment divine reverse, were all derived from the godfiend origin embryo. They relied on the power of the godfiend. As for the godfiend inverse mark and the godfiend body, they were also abilities that the godfiend body obtained after it was continuously awakened. It was as if the fiend god nascent embryo wasn't a single bloodline power, but a bloodline system that could be continuously awakened and strengthened. Sure enough, Qingqi's eyes trembled slightly, and a strange color flashed through them. His expression became even stranger. Senior Qingqi, are you all right? Seeing Qingqi's reaction, Tian couldn't help but frown and ask. I'm fine. Qingqi responded with a faint smile and nodded. Tian frowned. Of course, he could see that Qingqi seemed to have discovered something about him, but he was unwilling to say it. Since Qingqi didn't want to say it, it was not appropriate for him to force it. Tian, you've worked hard this time. You seem to be seriously injured, so you'd better hurry up and recover. Qingqi looked at Tian and said with a faint smile, but the smile seemed a little forced. Tian nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Rui Qianyu's problem was temporarily solved. He still had to participate in the 5 Academies test, so he really needed to recover his martial body as soon as possible. Senior Qingqi, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Qianyu. Tian looked at Qingqi and said solemnly. Don't worry. With me around, Miss Ruoyu will be fine. Qingqi nodded slightly and squeezed a smile on his pale face. Tian responded and didn't say anything else. He immediately left 9 extremities with Feng Tong. After coming out of 9 extremities, Tian immediately returned to his room and seized the time to recover. In the blink of an eye, a few days passed. In the room, Tian stood up. His eyes were sharp and his aura was much stronger than before. In a few days, not only did he recover from his serious injuries, but he also stabilized his realm. His aura was much stronger and stable. He was able to recover so quickly thanks to his destiny realm advancing to the destiny realm. He discovered that after his destiny realm advanced to the destiny realm, the blood chi and life aura in his body were several times stronger than before. In addition, his strength had broken through to the heavenly justice realm, so his martial body was several times stronger than before. His combat strength was also far stronger than before. Currently, even without activating the Godfiend body, he could easily deal with most opponents below the heavenly tribulation realm. Such combat strength was already considered top-notch among all the participants of the 5 academies. These few days, Tian also attempted to unseal the universe seal above the universe singularity again. But to his disappointment, the second universe seal showed no signs of being unsealed at all. He had just broken through not long ago, so he did not take the risk to directly fuse with the universe singularity. After leaving the room, Tian went to visit an Jianming. Then, he headed to Vast Cloud Plaza with EMO and the rest. Today was the day the second round of the 5 Academies test began. After a while, Tian and the rest arrived at Vast Cloud Plaza. At this time, there were about 50 to 60,000 martial artists who appeared on vast cloud officialdom. It was far fewer than the first round of the test. In that case, the first round of the test was practically 1 out of 100. The elimination rate was close to 99%. So many people were eliminated in the first round. I'm afraid the following test will be even more tragic. Qi Chenfeng frowned, clearly somewhat worried and afraid. Nie Tian had a calm expression and did not say anything. He was not worried about the following test. If he could not even pass the test stage, how could he talk about Wu Kuei? What really worried him was that there would definitely be a showdown between martial artists at the end. At that time, it would be the true battle of life and death, the time to see one's true ability. After a while, more than a dozen old men in green appeared high up in the sky. One of them was the person who presided over the first round of the test not long ago. And among this group of old men, there was a figure that seemed somewhat out of place. That was a martial artist in white who looked very young. He was tall and had handsome features. Standing in the wind, he was like a sharp sword, exuding an extremely sharp aura. The instant Nie Tian saw that martial artist in white, his eyes involuntarily trembled, and his expression immediately changed. He sensed that this martial artist's strength actually reached the 9th level of heavenly justice. But that was nothing. What really shocked him was that this martial artist's age was actually only around 20 years old.